Welcome, West Orange, to our Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020 virtual Township Council meeting. Madam Clerk.
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on October 31st, 2019, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on November 7th, 2019. Councilman Guarino?
Present.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Present.
Councilwoman Matute-Brown?
Present.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Present.
Council President Castellino?
Present. Thank you, Madam Clerk, and welcome everyone. I hope everybody has been safe and well. I'm very happy to report since our last meeting, we're doing very well with COVID cases. There hasn't been any additional deaths due to the virus in the township, very few positive cases, and we're really happy to hear that. So keep continuing to wear your mask as you frequent public venues. Our restaurants have been getting pretty good participation. They've been having some indoor dining, 20% capacity. Also, our fitness centers have reopened up, and we're glad to see folks going back to their normal daily routine safely. So we hope everyone could be supportive of all our small business in the township. Tonight, we don't have any special guest on, so I've asked our, because I wanted to have our township clerk, Ms. Carnival, speak to the public. There are a lot of concerns about the vote by mail. We didn't have all the information the last meeting. We do have information this meeting. And Madam Clerk is going to walk us through. She has a few slides for us on what to expect. You will be expecting ballots soon in the mail. And I'm going to turn the program over to her so she could educate us all. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of phone calls from residents concerned about voter registration and vote by mail. So I put together this slide with some information and hopefully answering some of those questions. All active registered voters in the state of New Jersey will be receiving a vote by mail ballot automatically. An absentee ballot and a vote by mail ballot are exactly the same thing. It's just vote by mail is the name they give it now. Those ballots should start to be mailed around October 5th. If you do not receive a ballot by October 13th, you should contact the Essex County Clerk's office, because those ballots do come from the Essex County Clerk's office, not the Township Clerk's office. I would give out a phone number, but from what I understand from a lot of phone calls I have received, it's very hard to get through down there. So I will give out an email. I think it's probably easier. And the email would be info@essexclerk.com. And or they could always contact my office at 973-325-4155, and we would be happy to try to get in touch with the Essex County Clerk on their behalf. So once you get the ballot, you know, there's several different ways you can return the ballot. Some people will choose to mail it just in the regular mail. They are, I believe, postmarked already, so there will be no postage cost. That has not been confirmed, but that is normally the process. So you can drop it in the mail, or there will be two ballot boxes set up in West Orange. One is going to be located at the Cody Arena underneath the parking garage on Northfield Avenue. And the other one is going to be at our town hall, 66 Main Street. And we are actually picking up those boxes tomorrow, and they will be installed the one at town hall will be installed by Friday. The one at Cody Arena is already in place. Another option is you can go to the Board of Elections office in Newark. They're located at 465 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Newark. And you have until 8 p.m. on November 3rd to drop off your ballot. Or you can go to your polling place. The polling places will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day, which is November 3rd. And you can hand it in there. If you are going to hand it in there, only you can bring your own ballot to the polling place. You cannot bring a friend's ballot or your mom's ballot or anyone else. It has to be just your own ballot. I spoke briefly today to Teresa DeNova, our health officer, and this information is not confirmed, but we were discussing having the seniors. Some of the seniors would like to go to their polling sites. And so she is trying to work something out with transportation for the seniors on Election Day. I explained to her that if you do want to go and vote in person, you will not be voting on a machine as in other elections due to COVID. You will go to the polling place and you will be given a paper ballot, which is called a provisional ballot, and you will vote that way. Now at the primary, there was no need to sign books or anything like that. They are going to have you sign your books at this election. So that, you can do it that way. There will be machines set up for people with disabilities to vote at the polling sites. Registration to vote. This is important because a lot of times you register, such as I did when I was, 18 or 17. And then over the years, you get married, you change your name, you move. So however you register to vote, that information has to be accurate. So if you have gotten married, you have changed your name, you have moved, even if you've moved from one location in the township to another location in the township, you have to have the correct information. I had a woman call up today and tell me that she had gotten married over the last year. She never changed her voter registration. She voted in the primary election and it was rejected. So that's very, very important. Another thing people should realize too is that if you do not vote on a regular basis and you have missed the last 2 presidential elections, there's a chance that your voting registration has been wiped off the books. So you may have to re-register. Because I always, prior to me working in this field, I thought that once you registered, you're always registered forever, but that is not the case. Also, if you've moved to Essex County from another county, even if you're in New Jersey, you should always give your county clerks the accurate information. If you moved out of Morris County, you should call Morris County clerk, tell her you've moved out to Essex County, and that way they can clean up their books. And that's how we keep all the information accurate. Voter registration is due, any types of changes or a new voter registration is due by October 13th. And we are going to be holding a late night voter registration at Town Hall from 4:30 p.m. until 9 p.m. at the main entrance. So if you park in the back, you have to walk around to the main entrance. The foyer will be open and I will be there to collect your voter registrations. And you can also, even though you are going to be getting a vote by mail, if you feel the need to apply for one, you can certainly fill it out at my office that night. And I think I pretty much covered everything unless somebody has questions.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk, as far as security with the cameras on the boxes?
Yes, we have, we were required to install cameras, and they are also required to bolt the boxes down so that there's no threat of, anyone stealing them or your ballots.
Very good.
And if someone votes provisionally, does that vote get counted that day or up to 10 days later?
I don't know if it would get counted that day. I know that all voting ballots have to be postmarked by 8 p.m. on November 3rd, and the county will accept any of the ballots received up until November 10th, but they have to be postmarked by 8 p.m. on November 3rd. So if the mail is delayed, God forbid, or, they didn't collect them until the next day, as long as your ballot's in the box by 8 p.m. on November 3rd and it's postmarked by the post office by 8 p.m. on November 3rd, they'll accept them up until November 10th.
Okay, great.
Madam,
I'm going to go in order, Councilman
Okay.
Guarino. Do you any questions?
No, not at this time, Council President.
Councilman Kukoviac?
No, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Matute Brown.
Thank you, Council President. Madam Clerk, I know I heard you say it earlier, but can you just clarify for those who are in the public what active registered voter means?
Okay, so that what I was referring to there is some people don't vote at every election. So basically, if you haven't voted in the last 2 presidential elections, there is a chance that your voter registration is wiped off the books, which means you're no longer active. So you should, if that happens to be you and you want to vote in this year's presidential election, you haven't voted in the last 2, it's a good opportunity to go online and to check your voter registration, or you can contact my office and we would be very happy to do that. If anyone is going to contact my office, the best way to do it would be email, because we are working from home and we are in the office. I do go in a minimum of 3 times a week, but the hours do vary. So the best way to do it would be to email me at clerk@westorange.org and give me your full name and address, and I'll be happy to look it up and let you know what the information is.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Oh, there was one other thing I did want to touch on as far as the polling places. We are not going to have all of the polling places like a normal election due to COVID. So we are going, I think there's about 10 different polling sites that we are going to have. Every ward and district will be, I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Notified.
Yes, and what they'll do is they'll send the information to every voter explaining where their polling site is. So you'll know exactly where you need to go that day, whether you want to drop the ballot off or vote provisionally. You will have that information.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And of course, anyone could call into the clerk's office if you should have any questions.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sears, you're up. Redevelopment update.
What I found out today was that there are now 230 units leased. And I did not get any information on where they're going with phase 2 yet. Unfortunately, I couldn't talk to Gene personally, but he sent me an email with the lease agreement. So there's 230 leased apartments.
Okay. Does Councilman Guarino, any questions?
No, I reached out to Mr. Diaz. I'm waiting for him to get back to me on the leasing of the retail operations below. Thank you.
Great. Councilman Kukoviac?
No, nothing at this time. Thank you.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Nothing for me, thank you.
And Councilwoman McCartney?
Thank you, Council President. Jack, if and when you do get a hold of Jean, I know that a letter was sent out to people in the area to do another oh,
Sure.
remediation. So it's more remediation. Though I do know from planning when it was approved, they did receive a letter of no further action. So can you,
Mediation in what areas, Sue?
well, this was from the Thomas Edison National Historic Park. The
Okay.
superintendent showed me a letter, but we're just trying to find out, maybe something is in the works for plan. You know, we're really just speculating, but wondering why that letter was received and what is their
When I
comment.
talk to him, I'll ask him.
Please, thank you.
You got it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilman Garino, you will start off with your council liaison announcements.
Okay. All righty. So we are back. And I'm sorry to say that the West Orange Farmers Market will be ending a little earlier this year on October 31st. You know, the situations that made it that, you know, we feel this is as far as that we can take it. And Rob and Stacy have done a phenomenal job. And Sage and Sean have always been there every Saturday morning to make sure it goes. So I just want to do another big shout out to Rob and Stacy. And we will see you next year. And we thank you all. We thank our residents, our shoppers, and our merchants and vendors for supporting the West Orange Farmers Market. We'll be back next year, bigger and better. Again, we're ending it on October 31st. So please make sure you come out for the last few weeks and show the vendors and Rob and Stacy that you really appreciate all that they've done. The last thing I want to talk about, Council President, is the West Orange, the Washington Street Walkability Corridor study that we've been working on, this is one of many that will be done in the Township of West Orange to show how we're going to do and move forward with the walkability of our township as part of our complete streets and the technical grants that we've gotten from Sustainable and from the New Jersey Department of Transportation. And a big shout out to them for really doing so. If for a minute, if I could just share my screen to show you a couple of pictures of what we were talking about, and I hope I do this right. Okay. Just real quickly, as everybody can see this was our Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program for the Washington Corridor by Washington School. It was a great participation, great feedback from both the residents and great feedback from the state. And we're looking forward to more that's going to go on. These are the parts of things that we look like. This is the corner at Torrey Corner, it coming from Washington into Main Street. These are different areas. Now, this presentation is available on the township website in the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board section. I'll send a Facebook post out about this. But these are all the different things that we're looking to: bicycle enhancements, walk streets, crosswalks, sidewalks, curb extensions, which are fantastic, and plaza. So we're really looking to get into this, and hopefully, you know, by next year when we do the road diet, we can also incorporate part of this into the Washington Street corridor to make it a more walkability for our residents and particularly the students so they can walk to the school. And I want to thank everybody for participating. And there'll be more of these coming up that we're getting from the grant program. It's a great project and we look forward to it. And so I just want to thank you, Council President, for the opportunity to show that. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you and your committee for all their efforts. You've been working very hard on this, and it'll be a great addition to Main Street. Councilman Kukoviac.
Thank you. The Open Space and Recreation Committee met on September 9th. A lot of the discussion was about the pollinator garden, which we created through a grant. And the lockdown is sort of set us back a little bit, but we plan to have a grand opening virtually sometime between now and the end of October. We're still looking for a date. We're going to need to weed the garden. As part of that, there's a second part of the grant that will be an educational component. And what it'll be is we'll have signposts around the property, and they'll be tagged to plants that are nearby, and through the use of QR codes. So you hold up your phone, and we're going to have information about the plants themselves. And Ms. Christine Faust, who teaches at Liberty Middle School, is going to be creating the codes. So want to thank her for that. And Ted Kinsella, if anybody knows him, is going to be providing the posts. The township probably has to dig the holes. So we're really excited about that. This is, the garden is designed to help pollination, which is crucial, as you know. And the other item at the meeting is that we finally finished off the open space and recreation plan update, and it's now part of the master plan update. That's it, Council President. Back to you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Matu Brown?
Thank you, Council President. Do we have the slide for the census?
Yes, we do.
Yes, I put it out of order. I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay.
We
The
can start,
census
we can
first?
start there. We can start.
Okay.
That's fine. I have to struggle. Very excited. I hope everyone marked their calendars for this Friday, September 25th, 7:30 at OSPAC. We are going to have Motown for our town. I really am encouraging you all to come out. It was a great time. The last event that was placed at OSPAC by the Pleasant Valley Productions, they worked very hard to try and get this in for us. There is a rain date of Saturday, September 26th. So please be sure to come out and join what is expected to be a very fabulous time. Gates are open for food. There is a beer and wine garden, and that opens at 6:30. The event itself starts at 7:30. If you are looking to volunteer, please do contact Pleasant Valley Productions because they are looking for volunteers. This is all volunteer run. I know some of my council colleagues already have their green shirts to volunteer, so I'm happy that there are some hands on deck, but we need some more hands on deck. So please, if you're able to, certainly contact Pleasant Valley Productions to volunteer and come on for a good time. And we can move on to the census. So West Orange, we're at 73.5, which is a lot better than the self-response rate for the state, but not quite near where we need to be. I'm going to beg everyone here to please contact friends. When you say hello to someone passing in the street, you know, with your mask on, please be sure to ask them if they've completed their census. We should be at 100%. Some of our districts are, some of our census tracts are at 80%, but we still need to get to a better number. There are census takers out there presently. They will be walking through September 30th. If a census taker knocks on your door, please, please, please give them the time to respond to just a few quick answers, and know that everything is kept confidential by law. Your information is not shared or distributed to anyone. So please be sure that you are completing your census. I think that is it for me, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman McCartney. You have to go back to the Zoom slides there.
Okay, we could start there. That happened 8 o'clock this morning. The West Orange Chamber of Commerce is seeking a new executive director. Bianca Prieto, between the remote learning and children, is stepping down. So we were going over resumes, and a lot of resumes have been received. So we were planning on when to start the review and interview process. And in the meantime, even during COVID, there have been quite a few new members. So Council President, I appreciate the fact that the Business Task Force has been established so that we can share that information with business owners. It was mentioned before too about when we had the last Business Task Force meeting, having gyms open, and of course it's still restricted, but immediately residents from the rent-a-house called because they wanted their exercise room, if they can have access to that.
Okay.
The board unfortunately voted, well, fortunate for them, but disappointing for them. The board voted that the space is really too small for the exercise room to operate safely. So I was sorry to report that back to the residents. On the Arts Council, again, even during COVID, there is a lot going on between workshops and gallery openings and exhibits. So I just invite everyone to visit WOAC for the West Orange Arts Council, new website, woac.org, to find out information about that. I wanted to pick up on where Jerry left off on the pedestrian safety. Jerry was an outstanding New Jersey TPA walkability study. The facilitator at one point said that his audience was very quiet, and I think it was because there were so many sensible and logical and practical designs that were being presented, and it just seemed like, how are we going to implement all of this? So I do understand that there are TPA grants available. I did ask that question during the session, and I would look forward to working with you on that TPA grant. We have used that before.
Thank you.
The Environmental Commission, so you know, members of the Environmental Commission, DPW, and the community were knee-deep in the West Branch of the Railway River last weekend, cleaning the stream from Vincent's Pond at Degnan Park to the Orange Reservoir by McClune's. There were many, many volunteers, and that was facilitated by an Eagle Scout, Sean Cox. So I'm hoping that he can join us at our next meeting to talk about the cleanup of the stream, mitigating flooding, and the structures that, or not structures, but the debris that was found in the stream. The planning board will meet on October 7th at 7:30, still meeting by Zoom. I know my colleagues, we have received information from the Watershed Institute on enhancing stormwater rules. So I presented that to the board, planner, and the engineer to put that on the agenda for discussion. And on tonight's meeting, we do have the tree ordinance there, which also to be discussed, but I believe that that has to go back to the planning board because we are seeking to amend chapter 25. So we need a legal opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, I was going to give you this slide. I forgot to tell you. The Holy Trinity Food Pantry, September's Hunger Action Month, and there's a bunch of items that they are seeking. So although a lot of people have gone back to work, there's so many still suffering. And so if anyone would like to donate any of these items, please reach out to them. Okay, and thank you again to Cynthia Cumming, Chris Babinski, Karen Bottinger, and all the volunteers down at Trinity Food Pantry. Next slide. Okay, so
sorry, Council President, I just like the fact that there were specific items on there that people can
yes,
maybe on their shopping excursions.
and we'll leave that up, and it's been on Facebook too, so look for it and you can reach out. And speaking of donating, so Councilwoman Matu Brown announced OSPAC Friday night, and at the next few events at OSPAC, once again, Suzanne Pinnell will be packing boxes for West Orange Support Our Troops. Her son Dylan, who is an officer in the Navy, he is an ensign. He is there pictured above with his fellow crewmates and receiving their packages. So they are seeking many various items. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the flyer in time to get it posted for the meeting, but some of the items are Halloween candy, snack packs of cookies, peanut butter crackers, nuts, pretzels, goldfish graham crackers, tuna pouches, fruit chews, ramen noodles, and also some toiletries, hotel-size shampoo, conditioner, body lotion, etc. So any of these kind of items, if you're going to the concert Friday night, please, there'll be a box there that you could donate these items, and there'll be a collection box at the next few concerts, I believe, down at the public library and we'll be storing items at the town pool. So thank you, Councilwoman McCartney, for setting that up for Suzanne. And we look forward to another great support from West Orange to our troops. And the next slide. Okay, great. So Councilwoman had mentioned we had another business seminar. We're so excited that we actually had 2 ribbon cuttings this past week. We haven't done that in a while due to COVID. I thank you to Mr. Fagan for facilitating this for us, making it a very safe event. We welcome New Body Training System, Frederick and Lisa Niels to the community and to our business community. They are located right at the Glen Rock Savings Bank on Prospect Avenue across from Essex Green. And also their beautiful space, a beautiful therapy space that he has, as well as training. And he is downstairs. Upstairs, our longtime business owner and great community partner with a lot of our events, Lisa Batchelor of Unique Performance Arts Center, relocated to this spot as well. Her dance studio is upstairs. So we very excited for Lisa to reinvest back in our community. Picture above is her and her husband with Councilwoman I, and we have the Niels picture with the mayor and the picture above. So we welcome them to their new location, and we hope that they do well. So really glad to see ribbon cuttings again once here in the township. So lots of luck to them. And next, okay, 2 more things that I have. I want to thank our Senior Services Department today and last week. They've sat on a call with the Grata Center. We've had some age-friendly seminars that were very, very informative. Evaluating your age-friendly community was one today, and developing new methods, metrics to guide your work to show your community improvement. So a lot of great lessons were learned. We were on call with age-friendly communities as far away as Massachusetts, surrounding communities, Montclair, who's been way ahead of the curve the past few years. They spoke today. Ridgewood was on the call. So it was a great workshop, and I appreciate our Senior Services Department for taking their time and working with the Grata Center to implement some new and great programming for our senior community. And just want to make sure I got everything before we go to the public meeting. I just wanted to also, in the near future, we've gotten some emails from residents from Rock Spring community. I know everyone is concerned of what the future planning will be for our Rock Spring Golf Club and our golf course. And the mayor is putting something together, and we will have a community meeting as he promised, and that information will be forthcoming. Hasn't been anything set yet. So just wanted to let those on the call to know that that will be coming in the future, and we'll notify the council when the mayor has put that together for us. And with that, Madam Clerk, we are ready to go to our general meeting.
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on October 31st, 2019, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on November 7th, 2019. Councilman Guarino?
Present.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Present.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Present.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Present.
Council President Castellino?
Present.
Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The council is now in their public meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We will start off with public comment. For those of you who are on the call this evening, welcome. If you have not been to a council meeting prior, Please note you will have 5 minutes to speak. You could ask questions, make a statement. At the end of the 5 minutes, we will address you after everyone has spoken. So there is not a back and forth dialogue, only because time. We want to make sure we get everybody in enough time. When you raise your hand, and our moderator will call upon you, and when you come on the air, please state your name and your address. Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much. Yes, as President mentioned, you can use the raise your hand feature that is located at the bottom center of your screen. And does not look like we have any call-ins, so we don't have to worry about that. And we have Joe Fagan, if you can follow the prompt on your screen, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Joseph Fagan, Public Information Officer, Township of West Orange. Greetings, Madam President, to you and your esteemed colleagues. I would like to speak briefly about the recent partnership formed this past August between the Mental Health Associates of Essex and Morris and our own West Orange Police Department. I'm pleased to report that the program has experienced both early successes and praises. There have been 2 instances this past week involving the West Orange Police Department where they co-responded to situations involving individuals with mental health issues. The collaborative efforts of the partnership yielded positive results in successfully de-escalating situations without use of force. As you know, we have seen many examples of these type of situations nationwide, which can easily spiral out of control very quickly. The Essex County Prosecutor's Office is in full support of the program, and one of the mental health professionals involved has stated that in 35 years, he has never seen a police department willing to be so transparent. This speaks volumes to the professionalism and leadership of our police department and their commitment to safely and effectively policing our community. Police officers undergo training, and body cam footage of the incidences are reviewed and evaluated to further enhance and refine procedures. The privacy of the individuals is always protected, and the body cam footage never leaves the police headquarters. The West Orange Police Department is at the forefront of community policing with this program, and to our knowledge, it is the only law enforcement agency in New Jersey involved in a partnership of this nature. This is a prime example of the type of programs needed, as police agencies must be resourceful in meeting the challenges of the future. Town residents can rest easy with full confidence knowing that the West Orange Police Department is leading the way as an innovator in community policing. I encourage you or any members of the public to reach out to Chief Abbott if you have any concerns or questions. An informed public is a key element in building trust and confidence between our police officers and the community they serve. Thank you, Madam President. This concludes my remarks, and thank you for the opportunity to address the Town Council this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fagan.
Hey, thank
Okay.
you. And now, Sally Malenga, if you can please follow the prompt that should appear on your screen.
Good evening, Sally Malenga, 57 Ridge Road. I'm speaking tonight as a board member of Our Green West Orange. I see that tonight you will attempt to rush through the $100 million tax break at Executive Drive through the planning board once again. When this first started, Mr. Trank said that there would be no pilots are way down the road, but nobody really believed him. And sure enough, there was a huge pilot, which you voted on December 18th. It was knocked down by the appellate court, and now here it is immediately, not even a week later, back on the agenda. I must say this comes across as desperate. How can this body, except for Joe Krakowiak, support multi-million-dollar tax breaks at a time when our tax revenue is down? This saddles us with further taxation and debt, and I think our residents deserve better treatment. I suggest that you survey the taxpayers to determine if they support this project and are willing to help subsidize it before you authorize another $30,000 in planning fees and God knows how much in legal fees. I want to mention the resolution to hire the planning firm Hire Gruel is on the agenda. They have not proven to be an independent voice, having shepherded the plan for the contested library designation as an area in need of redevelopment. And then I'd like to turn to the tree ordinance. Why is it too much to ask that we have a tree ordinance that actually preserves trees and our property values? The amendments that are proposed, while good, fall short of that. Residents and members are asking me why Ms. Susan McCartney, the council member liaison to the Environmental Commission, is obstructing the most basic tree protection ordinance. Voters are asking me why Michelle, Jerry, and Cindy are following her lead when everyone saw that you three seem to care about trees. Jerry, you went down and you talked to the homeowner on Old Indian Road. But the three of you reversed course when Susan, the so-called environmental liaison, objected. What do I tell voters? It's very confusing. Last, I object to our town CFO, Mr. John Gross, taking the part-time job as CFO of Dover, New Jersey, while he's still our full-time CFO. I'd like to know how that will work. And I appreciate your hearing me out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Malanga.
Hey, thank you. And Bill Rutherford, if you can please follow the prompt on your screen.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking my question. I'm Bill Rutherford. I live at 8 Hunt Place. I am going to remark and question about the Essex Green or Executive Drive development. Our mayor has already stated that he will pursue the redevelopment designation again, as Sally just said, not about a week later after it was knocked down by the courts. Given that the Griegel report was substantially flawed, as outlined in the decision of Mr. Malanga's lawsuit, and as contradicted in sales info and press releases of the properties at that time, what will the council do to ensure that we have an independent and thorough analysis for this new designation that apparently the mayor is going to seek immediately? With regard to Essex Green, in spite of the fact that Clarion is planning a redevelopment of Essex Green without tax incentives, and that redevelopment will update and make much more attractive that space, and it will make any housing in walking distance more attractive and therefore more valuable, why would we allow a tax incentive to be used for housing when we know the properties there are going to be appreciating in value, and they have already appreciated in value? Also, before you grant those tax incentives, will you, as council members, evaluate how those tax dollars could be used to reinvest in police, fire, DPW, the rec department, and the library? The opportunity cost of the tax giveaway is substantial, it's significant, and it should be evaluated thoroughly and reported to the community. I would also like to remark on Mr. Gross's part-time work. I don't know how we can have a full-time CFO working 40 hours a week and a part-time who has a part-time job working up to 20 hours a week in another town that's far away. I would hope that we would be able to provide some transparency with regard to how that work will be done. Thank you very much for taking my question and my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Rutherford.
Thank you. Okay. Sahib Bennett, if you can please follow the prompt on your screen, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, hi, thank you all. This is Sahib Bennett of 35 Old Indian Road. First, thank you for your time. Second, please forgive my nerves. I am not the public speaker of our home, but this issue requires me to stand up. A short time ago, my wife, Michaela, brought to you all the issue of the tax fluctuation of our home. Council promised an investigation. As part of that process, the council requested a statement from the tax assessor The tax assessor submitted a statement, and with that submitted statement, your inquiry was deemed satisfactory. None of the information was checked for any level of truthfulness or accuracy. Neither Michaela nor I were asked to review it, and in fact, it took multiple inquiries to receive a copy. How can you conclude an investigation before it actually began? After our own very brief review of the report, which we received just, I believe, this week, we noticed our own a few inconsistencies, but yet no inquiries from this council. And in light of the recent Malenga lawsuit that blocked the Executive Drive redevelopment, there should be a greater impetus to investigate the issues of assessed property tax values. As the most powerful elected board of West Orange, if you cannot perform a simple investigation regarding the taxes of one of the residents, how can we trust that you can do a comprehensive investigation on a multi-million-dollar property like Executive Drive? The mayor has already committed to pushing forward the Executive Drive project, but I implore you to commit your time and energy and enter into a full investigation. It's been alleged that this select group of individuals are making an enormous sum of money by the manipulation of tax ratables of our town. Who will stand up to stop it? If not you, then who? During each election cycle, every town council candidate promises to look at ways to reduce the ever-increasing tax burden faced upon the residents here. Now is the time. This is your time. Please look into this issue, not just in our home, but also at Executive Drive. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. And David Kuby, if you can please follow the prompt on your screen.
Good evening, President Castellino and council members. This is Dave Kuby, the director of the West Orange Public Library, and this is a statement as well from Marge Mingan of 30 Davie Drive, who is the president of the Library Board of Trustees. Our message this evening is to encourage your positive vote for resolutions 178-20 and 179-20. 178-20 authorizes the planning board to investigate and conduct a study to determine whether the properties on Executive Drive and Rooney Circle, which includes lot 41.02, the proposed site for a new library, meet the criteria as areas in need of redevelopment, and 179-20 to retain Hire and Gruel to conduct the study. Given that the 2019 amendment to the Redevelopment Act, as mentioned in the September 11th ruling, provides a path for the township to successfully pursue the redevelopment status, it makes sense to approve these resolutions and proceed with all due haste. The 10 Rooney Circle site will provide more space in the geographic center of town with more parking, safe spaces for outdoor reading and programming for children, and major technology upgrades and services so necessary for changes within our society. We are proud to support an overall project that will also create 65 affordable housing units at our current location when we move. It would especially be a shame after all of the hard work and money spent and the millions in financial incentives from the developers and a once-in-a-generation library construction bond act with one-to-one matching, that such a worthy project were discontinued. We urge you to vote yes on these matters. We strongly support the critical role of a modern library plays within our community. We believe you do also. Thank you, and we look forward to the time when a new library's doors will be opened.
Thank you, Mr. Kuby.
Thank you. And Brent Scott, if you can please follow the prompt on your screen.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I am speaking today in opposition to the $100 million tax giveaway for the Essex Green Development. Yes?
Can you give me your address, please?
My apologies. 75 Nestro Road.
Thank you.
I'm speaking in opposition to the $100 million tax giveaway to the Essex Green Development because, as the court found, this is not an area in need of redevelopment. I'm also speaking against it because it is irresponsible for this council to give away $100 million in tax breaks or by any means of my taxpayer dollars and the taxpayer dollars of my fellow 50,000 residents of West Orange. I'm opposed to that dramatically. It is not a secret that I'm a candidate for West Orange Council, along with Councilman Guarino, who is running for a third term, and Councilwoman Castellino, who is seeking a third term. In my candidacy, I've knocked on over 500 doors, and let me assure you that 99% of the people I've spoken to have mentioned property taxes without any prompting from me as their #1 concern. Giving away $100 million to the Essex Green development, again, as the court found not an area in need of redevelopment, is irresponsible. This council voted to raise property taxes in West Orange in 2019 and 2020, 2 years in a row. Outrageous. Even after President Donald Trump capped state and local tax deduction SALT at $10,000, even during a pandemic when thousands of residents have lost their jobs. That is irresponsible of this body to raise taxes under such situations. Outrageous. The money that you would like to spend on this giveaway to Essex Green would be better spent redeveloping Main Street. The #2 thing that people have mentioned to me in the months that I've knocked on 500 doors, downtown West Orange is a disaster. When are they going to do something about Main Street? That's #2. #1, property taxes too high. #2, spend the money redeveloping Main Street. Let me reiterate in the time that I have remaining. It is irresponsible of this body to give away $100 million of my tax money and my 50,000 fellow residents' money to an area that an appellate court found is not, N-O-T, not in need of redevelopment. Irresponsible. It is even more irresponsible and shameful of you to pass property taxes 2 years in a row, 2019 and 2020, even after Donald Trump capped state and local tax deductions at $10,000, and during a pandemic when tens of thousands of your fellow residents have lost their jobs. Think about that when you're making your vote again. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Madam
you.
Moderator, would anybody else like to speak?
Yes, we have a few others. Okay, so I just have Joyce. If you can follow the prompt on your screen and give us your first and last name and address, please.
Good evening. This is Joyce Rudin, 38 Woodland Avenue in West Orange. On September 11th, West Orange's plan for a $100 million tax break to a developer came to an abrupt halt by the Appellate Division of the New Jersey Superior Court. This was a unanimous decision by the Appellate Division. No one found that the Executive Drive office development located behind Essex Green met the criteria necessary to designate it as an area in need of redevelopment, and that designation is the key to the tax break sought by the developers. So I am completely surprised that just 11 days later that you, the council, have it back on your agenda to revisit this in the resolution 179-20 and to authorize another $30,000 to yet another planner to prove that Executive Drive is in need of redevelopment. The court has already answered that question. Who in the public is clamoring for this? Who amongst the voters in West Orange, besides the developers? I haven't seen any evidence of this, and I don't think it's a worthy project to move a library from an area which is in walking distance to those people who most need the library. Yet tonight, behind closed doors, you will go to discuss this again and possibly vote once again to push forward this redevelopment plan and this huge tax break. This evening, prior to public comment, I heard many good ideas come from the council members of how money could be spent. Mr. Guarino spoke of the Complete Streets program. That would be a good way to spend $30,000 if you're dying to just spend $30,000. Mr. Krakowiak spoke about the pollinator garden. Yes, we should be spreading that. We should be enlarging that. We should be planting trees all around town. Ms. Castellino, I believe, spoke of the extraordinary needs right now in our community that need to be met at Holy Trinity Food, and asked people to go to the stores and buy food. Why doesn't the township help out? We have so many people in need. It is really heartbreaking to see. I ask you to stop throwing good money after bad. Millions of dollars don't need, $1 million developers don't need tax breaks. No homeowner gets these tax breaks, and neither should wealthy developers of areas that are obviously not blighted. I urge you not to move this forward and not to spend more money on proving that the executive drive is not blighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trudon.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Kevin Malenga, if you can follow the prompt on your screen, please.
Thank you. Good
Hello,
evening.
Mr. Malenga.
Good evening. Members of the council, good evening. Council President, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Use my words against me. That's what the reprobate U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham said 4 years ago when he worked against the holding hearings for Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland. Using a person's words against them can be powerful. For the Executive Drive office buildings, the Township Planning Board was told by its own planner that, quote, suburban office vacancy rates were pushing 30%, that without a significant repositioning, these properties will wither under the pressures of the changing office landscape. There are few prospects for finding another user for the existing and potential future vacant space. Aside from the inferior location of the properties, its odd layout, lack of on-site amenities, dearth of natural light, and overall dated aesthetic make the properties extremely difficult to market to potential large office tenants. 300 Executive Drive was purchased for $6.5 million in June of 2018. In December of 2019, the building was sold for $8 million, with only minor cosmetic improvements to its lobby having been done. That's a tidy profit of $1.5 million in a very short period of time. The Planning Board's recommendation that the council declare Essex Green and Executive Drive an area in need of redevelopment was based on the falsehood that Executive Drive offices were dead buildings, and the council, with the exception of Mr. Krakowiak, believed those falsehoods and voted to declare Executive Drive an area in need of redevelopment. We were also told that the Essex Green Shopping Center was an economic driver of the township and needed the redevelopment designation. Notably, the owner of Essex Green saw redevelopment as a sham and instead went to the zoning board, obtained approvals, and can move forward with renovating the shopping center. With the necessity of the so-called economic driver having stepped away from the redevelopment process, we are left with a tax break of $100 million for the construction of apartments that are in no way an economic driver, but yet another residential project with the concomitant demand for services. It is time to snip this economic debacle in the bud and vote no to the redevelopment study. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malenga.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak?
Yes, before we get to Mr. Puglisi, if we have anyone else who would like to speak, it's the raise your hand function, and we do have a caller. If you'd like to speak, it is *9 on your phone. Okay, so the next person, your Zoom name is VANWYK Gary. If you can follow the prompt on your screen, please.
Hello, it's Gary Van Wyck, 71 Burnett Terrace, West Orange.
Hi,
Thank
Gary.
you.
Hi. This is once again coming before Town Council. Reading the agenda, I was very surprised to see that Essex Green is once again being considered for the tax breaks under an area in need of redevelopment. Since the owners of Essex Green, Clarion, have already decided to proceed with their plans without a tax break, I don't see any reason now to reconsider them in terms of the law as an area in need of redevelopment and eligible for a pilot. If the developer is prepared to develop its own property on its own dime without the pilot that West Orange was going to offer them, I don't see any reason now, because the law has shifted slightly, to try to give that developer a handout in terms of a pilot. Particularly at a time when our taxes are just continuing to soar, this seems completely unnecessary to give Clarion any kind of tax break, or to even consider Essex Green as an area in need of redevelopment, since Clarion already waived the pilot that was offered to them. Secondly, I think we should be completely transparent about the grounds upon which the Town Council, representing our taxpayers, should consider revisiting the issue of executive drive, because the legislature has created a slight shift in the law that creates a little more slack for old office parks. That's a rather strange and, I must say, timely shift in the legislative parameters for giving a pilot or declaring an area in need of redevelopment. I think it's probably timely to revisit the whole thing in light of the fact that, apart from the slight recent shift in the law, the entire designation of area and redevelopment was knocked down. And that suggests to us that, according to the law, at the time that West Orange gave that designation, area in need of redevelopment for Executive Drive, and the pilot for Executive Drive, according to the courts and the parameters of the law, it was completely unnecessary and in fact illegal for us to grant the developer of Executive Drive any tax breaks. So I think we should look at the ethics and the economic imperative of granting those tax breaks at this stage if we are revisiting Executive Drive. Vis-a-vis Essex Green, I strongly recommend that everybody on the council takes to heart our soaring tax burden in West Orange and leave the owners of Essex Green, Clarion Partners, to develop that property on their own dime instead of on ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, someone has put in West Orange Town Council meeting as their name. If you
Okay.
can follow. Okay, so I have someone who is on an older version of Zoom, so I need to move them over to a panelist.
Okay.
I'm going to stop their video. So the person who's labeled as West Orange Town Council meeting, don't touch anything on your screen. It's going to go a little, it's going to change. And then I will stop the video. And we can have you unmute now. Follow the prompt on your screen.
And we still need your name, your full name, and your address, please.
Yes, I'm still having them unmute. Person who was labeled West Orange Town Council meeting. If you can unmute yourself, the bottom left-hand corner. I unfortunately cannot unmute you. Okay, just give me 1 second. Just trying to message them, see if they can unmute. The person who has West Orange Town Council meeting as their Zoom name, I have sent you a chat. If you can check your chat. Okay, unfortunately, they are not unmuting and they are not communicating with me, so I am unable to speak with them, but that's okay. I'm going to move you back over. Your screen is going to change. They also lowered their hand, so maybe they may have pushed it mistakenly.
Okay.
And with that, I have Mr. Puglisi, if you can follow the prompt on your screen.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. This is Anthony Puglisi, representing County Executive Joe DiVincenzo. I have the main staples that I usually have been speaking about the last several months. This up on the screen now is our testing site. We've transitioned a little bit. We reduced the number of days that we're at Weequahic Park and added more, or beginning to add more satellite sites. So you see the ones that are up for this week. They do change weekly. One note about Weequahic Park. You can get same day appointments at Weequahic. So you can either walk up to the site or drive up to the site. Or before you go, you can go to essexcovid.org or call and sign up for an appointment, and then you can go right to Weequahic Park. So that's an added feature for that one. You'll also notice there's one bullet point toward the bottom that's highlighted in yellow. We've also lowered the age of the people who we're testing at all of our sites. So now we're testing anyone who's age 8 years and older. And some people have told us this has been very helpful, especially when students are going back to school and all that. So again, you can go to essexcovid.org to see all the upcoming sites and make your appointments there. Next one. As always, we're continuing every Thursday to do our emergency food distribution program. This week we're in Independence Park. This is an all walk-up site. It is open to everyone throughout the county. We do start at 9 a.m. And since it is an all walk-up site, we are encouraging people, if they are walking, to bring a cart or have some way to carry the boxes, because they are rather heavy. I was going to mention our site next week, but I was informed of some logistical issues, so I don't want to mention that site until that's worked out. But if you just visit essexcountynj.org, tomorrow we will have the site for next week up. Next one. Every October, well, actually, I say every spring, May and October, we have our household hazardous waste and computer and electronics. These events were canceled in the spring. So we are anticipating that there will be a lot heavier usage on these 2 weekends. Plus there's also a Jewish holiday in there. So that's why we have multiple days. So household hazardous waste, which is usually just the first Saturday of the month, it's now extended to 3 days. You'll see the times that are there. Obviously the longest hours that we're at the site, which is our Public Works facility in Cedar Grove. That's the longest time on Saturday. And then again, 2 weeks later on October 16th and 17th, again, those days, that event has been expanded because of the pandemic. And again, Saturday is the longer day. We try to make it as simple as possible. So it will be a contactless event. So just like we've done in the past, cars will drive up, residents can open their trunk, and then we'll remove whatever items that they have in their trunk.
Nice.
And then I just have one other thing. Not everything has been canceled this year because of the virus. We did hold our Senior Citizen Art Show contest, albeit it was virtual, and there were 3 winners from West Orange. One was Noah Chivian, who won 2nd place in the non-professional photography category. A second person is Sue Silberner, who received 2nd place in the non-professional pastel category, and Steve Ween, who received 1st place in the non-professional pastel category. And we just want to congratulate them. It was a unique contest. All of those entries, as well as their entries, are on our website, on our parks website. It is a rather long website address. I just got this today, so I will forward this to all the council members. But you can definitely, the information will definitely be on our website within the next couple days. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Puglisi.
Oh, one other thing. At the last council meeting, there was a resident who asked about the restriping on Northfield Avenue. I did speak with our Public Works Director that night and then confirmed it the next day that Northfield Avenue from Main Street up until Gregory will be restriped at some point this fall.
Great. Thank you so much. You've been such a great partner, the county.
Madam President, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have 2 people who had raised their hands.
As long as they're not, they haven't spoken.
No, they
already.
haven't spoken yet.
Okay. Sure, go ahead.
Okay, once again, we're going to try again with West Orange Town Council. I have to move you over as a panelist, and I will shut off your video, so don't touch anything on your computer. I'm going to bring you over, and I'm going to stop your video. And then if you can unmute.
Unmute. I did. I hit the blue thing.
There you are. Great. Hi. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I'll tell you who I am. I'm Rosary Morelli. And
hi, Rosary.
Hi, everybody. I can't wait until we get back to normal, but I don't know if that is. Anyhow, I live on Ralph Road in West Orange. I would like to make a comment. I really am enjoying tonight's meeting. One speaker was better than the other. They're really excellent. Their comments were very well thought out. They did their due diligence. They were articulate on each of their subjects. As I said, well-versed, had done their homework. I would like to strongly suggest and recommend you all reflect on what was said tonight. We're coming up to an election, and you had some really good candidates speaking there tonight. You start thinking really hard before you vote tonight. All the ordinances that the people spoke about, as well as the redevelopment and the land shattering decision from the courts, and take that under consideration. When the people don't want it and the courts are against you, you better think really good and really hard before you vote for that redevelopment. Based on my experience and the fact that the mayor has described me as being relentless, to me, that's a compliment. It's not a criticism. And I'm saying to all the people out there who are advocating, for me, it took almost 4 years. It might take you time, but don't let up, because I heard some really good stuff tonight. And I think we have some really good potential candidates for the township. So make tonight your kickoff, guys. People will be listening to you because you hit a lot of the sore spots and a lot of spots that you're hearing from door to door travels. I hear it day after day after day, hour after hour after hour. And yet it falls on deaf ears. So I would advise you, again, I'm probably the oldest person at this meeting, and based on my life experience, listen to me and listen to what those people are saying. They know what they're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the other person was our last caller using a different device because they then lowered their hand with the initials RM. So I'm going to send that person back as an attendee, and we do not have anyone else on raising their hand.
Okay. Okay, great. All right, with that, I'm gonna just look at these comments real quick. I think I'd like to start off with Mr. Gross. Maybe you could explain your situation with Dover and how we're assisting another township.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I really don't have a second job. I was asked to help out another municipality who was in dire straits. They didn't have a number of officials in place for various reasons, and they didn't have a chief financial officer. So they didn't have anybody that could sign and transfer money, you know, to pay their payroll and pay essential bills. So I'm helping them out until they're doing a search and they're going to find a permanent CFO. That's the plan, and just helping out a neighbor.
Okay, Mr. Gross, thank you. And are you working anywhere else, just Dover right now? A couple hours you're supplying them?
West Orange.
And well, obviously West Orange. Okay, just want to clear the rumors up. Okay, thank you. Also, maybe you could help us out with this $100 million, loss in revenue that keeps going around. Can you speak to that?
Well, I don't know what the basis of that is. I mean, I can tell you that those 4 properties up there are currently bring in about $1.5 million a year. With the pilot and the taxes and the rents that we anticipated coming from the redevelopment, that would be more than the $1.5 million a year. It'd be 1.7 million. And on top of that is all the assets that we're going to acquire in terms of the building where the library is going to be, improvements to that building that are going to be funded, as well as the dog park. And we estimate that value is about $1 million a year value. What it would cost us to go out and actually do all those things ourselves would cost us about $1 million. So the net of that is what right now is about bringing in about $1.5 million in taxes. We would end up with a cash flow of about $2.4 million a year. So I think that's a significant improvement, over the status quo, particularly since the status quo is by all accounts not salvageable, and then it's going to those properties are going to continue to deteriorate because of the lack of interest in renting that type of space. It's also important to remember that the settlement, this as part of this project, there was a settlement of some very, at least potentially high tax appeals. So those go away with the redevelopment. So the township stands to gain significantly, or did stand to gain significantly from the project as it was approved. And if you move forward, I don't see any reason why that would change.
Thank you. I'm just gonna, just to inform the public, we have a resolution tonight, Resolution C 175-20, authorizing an executive session to discuss the litigation. So my colleagues are going to be limited with their comments right now, and I'll ask Mr. Trank to make a statement later in the evening. With that being said, I'm going to go to Councilman Guarino for his comments.
Thank you, Council President. First of all, with tree ordinances in Green, West Orange, and everything else, I've always been there for the Green. I went and talked to Mr. Pierre and the owners of that property. And, when you got the email said this huge oak tree on, Old Indian Road. When I went up there and they showed me, it was 2 small trees wrapped around each other that is in question. Doesn't matter. Size of a tree doesn't matter. And the thing is, Mr. Lepore said they were working on finding alternatives. They were not going to take the tree down. That was addressed. It's important. You don't want to cut down every tree because at the end of the day, ecology it plays into it. Our ordinance needs a little more teeth. And I said that at the last council meeting. But according to conversations with Councilwoman McCartney, you put it through now and we amend it as we go along. We make it stronger and stronger and stronger. But I also like to get more residents. We need to reach out to the public as public information and not just hear from the one side of the argument. We need to hear from the entire township. And that's what I like to hear. But I support the fact is that we need a street tree ordinance because it makes our town. It's healthy. It's a healthy environment, particularly with things going on now. We need to protect our canopies. When people start talking about Main Street, and they start pontificating about Main Street has come a long way in the 8 years since I've been on the council. When I came onto the council 8 years ago, there were 54 vacant storefronts on Main Street. Now there are only 8. And basically there are 4 different corridors on Main Street, not just one town center. There are 4. There are Torrey Corner, there's St. Mark's Square, there's Edison Loss, and there's Lady of Lords. And all of them have been developing. Businesses are coming in. People are making efforts. They're coming in. The businesses are showing and reflecting the people that live down there. They're also attracting people from all over town to come partake of these items and products that are worldwide. Main Street has come a long, long way. It's not a disaster. People question. They have questions about why the retail at Edison Lofts hasn't moved forward and a few others. But what everybody keeps jumping over is COVID. A lot of leases were taken away. A lot of leases were stopped because businesses right now do not have the wherewithal to make an investment if they do not know if the business will survive. And I will tell you, there will be a lot of businesses, not only on Main Street, that will not survive COVID. That's why I constantly say to people, shop West Orange, adopt a place, shop, shop, shop. Give our merchants the effort they need. Don't just pontificate about things that are a disaster because they're not as bad as you're making it out to be. And, when you talk about the taxes, well, why don't you break out the taxes and not just make it seem like it's just municipal? It's county, it's library, it's municipal, and it's also Board of Education. And of course, I support a strong Board of Education because that supports our property values. But don't just keep saying it's the township. Your tax bill is made up of those components. So when you talk to the public, give the public the total information. That's what you need to do. When you talk about redevelopment, you talk about Essex Green, you talk about Executive Drive. Do understand that COVID is going to play a major importance on a lot of things. You talk about office space, New York City and the surrounding areas are suffering the biggest loss of office space because companies don't need the office space any longer. People are working from home. And even after this, when people are working from home, people are going to lose their jobs. So they're going to need less office space. I'm not saying it's right. It's not saying it's wrong. I will consult with my colleagues because I believe that's the right thing to do. But don't come out and say, oh, you got all these office spaces and oh, they're going to make all this money. You don't know that. You don't know what COVID's going to have the impact on every major company. But I will tell you this, if one goes bad, the other will go bad. It's like a cancer. It'll eat at the other. Because what these places will do is when there's no rentals, there's no income coming in, they'll do tax appeals. You think you're paying more now? Pay a tax appeal. But nobody says that in their presentations. All they say is $100 million this. They don't talk about the components. They don't talk about anything that impacts it. And believe me, I respect the taxpayers of West Orange when everything that I do and look for. I don't give away money. I always look for money through grants and development savings. But you got to look at the whole picture. Yes, it's very scary out there right now. And you're talking about Executive Drive. You're talking about Essex Green. I'll give you a prime example. If AMC doesn't open up in Essex Green, what do you think is going to happen? Can anybody answer my question? No, you can't because you didn't think that way. But you have to understand, if businesses don't open, it's going to impact every other area. When you talk about development, you talk about a community within a community. The library is one thing. We were taking the library from Main Street, and you were making that a tax income property by a private developer. The township was going to get anywhere between $30,000, $1,000 a year plus, which we're getting nothing right now for that property, and building a state-of-the-art library that was going to cost us near nothing based upon the developer's contribution, the grant that the library board, Mr. Kuby and his board were doing. But nobody ever says that. You always say that we don't care about the taxpayers. I can speak for myself because I've always cared about the taxpayers. The same thing with Edison loss. You talk about holding up something. If certain people didn't hold up Edison loss for the number of years that it would have been in, it would have been done, and would have been a major catalyst for the Main Street corridor. You talk about Main Street. Do you ever bring up the fact that the road diet, which, thank you, County of Essex, for supporting us on that, will make the Main Street corridor even better, safer for our students, for our pedestrians, but none of you ever talk about that. You just talk about the hot button items and you misinform the public. So that's the one thing that really infuriates me the most, because you never talk the full thing. Mrs. Morelli is right. You should listen to the comments. And Mrs. Morelli is right when she talks about certain things, but you got to listen to the whole picture. Don't just look at one side of the picture. And that's what I'm saying. So if you look at Edison loss, okay, it is 230 units are filled now. And there were people back when I first got in that said, who was going to live down there? Who was going to live down there? Well, guess what? There were 230 residents and more living on Main Street, but people said nobody was going to live there. But they held up the project. They cost the township money, and it was done 6-7 years ago. Before now, it would have been the major catalyst of a downtown. It is right now. People are very interested. Properties are raising, property values are raising because of the Edison loss. People are seeing the value, but they're waiting. It's COVID. And I'm not using that as an excuse. It's COVID. Go anywhere, go to any community, it's COVID. And people are waiting to see how this is all going to play out. And then what's going to fall, how the chips would fall. But remember, when you talk tax dollars and you talk tax expense, don't just talk about the municipal, talk about all four components. And that's the way you have to look at it. And that's the, how you have to examine it, how you have to take it. I'm going to talk to my colleagues when it comes to executive drive. I'm not just going to make a decision. I want the full component of what my colleagues think. But you have to understand that if Essex Green goes, then everything goes. Everything rolls along like a cancer. And if you say that I'm wrong, well, you can look in other places and see where it's happened. And property revenues and revenues in themselves are all based upon the economic structure. It's a community within a community. So don't say we're giving away money. Look at the other side of it. And if my colleagues think that way, then we'll discuss it. But don't ever say that I don't care about the taxpayers, because I do. Everything I do. The development on Main Street was a taxpayer. Doesn't cost us anything. It's bringing people in, and they are paying their taxes. I don't know where I see on Facebook where people say, well, Edison lofts are not paying their taxes. They are paying their taxes, their required taxes. You look at Essex Green, I'm telling you, Essex Green gave us, through my Complete Streets program, gave us everything that we wanted to make it a safer, a more traffic and more pedestrian friendly environment. They gave it to us as part of the master plan. It's part of their planning agreement. As things go aside, if certain businesses don't reopen, you're not going to see a lot of that. And if Essex Green decides not to go forward with things because COVID has made an impact on their retail, it's also going to affect any residential properties in that area. And Council President, my colleagues, I'm sorry for being this way.
Okay.
The thing is, people get up, they pontificate about certain things that they don't know anything about, but it's a campaign time, and what they're trying to show is that the council hasn't made the effort, but my council colleagues, all of us, have always made the effort to make West Orange a better, safer, and a more friendly community or area than anywhere else. And that's the way you have to look at it. But remember, there's 4 parts of the tax, not just the municipal part. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Kukoviac.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Just want to thank all the speakers tonight. Raised a variety of really good issues and points. Mr. Fagan, thank you about talking about how the police are working better at improving dealing with mental health in town. I think that's a great thing. Ms. Malanga, I agree with you. I think the improvements that are proposed for the tree protection ordinance are good, but we could make the ordinance so much better if we only agree to a lot of the other points that our Green West Orange had worked on for the last couple of years. Mr. Rutherford started talking, Ms. Malanga and Mr. Rutherford started talking about redevelopment. There's going to be more discussion about that later on. This is, you've probably noticed a thread that runs through all of the criticism of the redevelopment, and that is the payments in lieu of taxes that give away future tax revenues as part of the 30-year tax abatement and incentive. And the issue really comes down to the pilot, and it really comes down to letting the developer, the owner of the property, do whatever the heck he wants to do with his property within the confines of the law. He spent $15 million to buy Executive Drive. That's by definition not a blighted property. He's already spent $15 million. The people who are looking to take advantage of the pilot are highly expertise and experienced developers who have significant resources and could do whatever they want with this property without the pilot. And then starting from day one, they would pay the same property taxes at the same rate that the rest of us are. There's absolutely no reason that they can't do it themselves. As people pointed out tonight, that's exactly what Essex Green, the owners of Essex Green, decided to do. They left the redevelopment process and went on their own. And they moved ahead a lot faster because of it. But they're right next door. It proves how valuable this property is. Mr. Malanga brought up the fact that 300 Executive Drive sold for a lot more than was paid for it. The bottom line is they don't need a pilot. And as some of you know, or most of you know, I'm a big proponent of the library, and I support an improved, expanded, modernized library. But that library does not have to be held hostage to a pilot. If that's the building that we think we should get, we should start negotiating for it and not slow down. There's a real danger in slowing down on the library because of the plan to take advantage of some state library construction bond financing that will help reduce the cost of this. It is still going to cost us a lot of money from us going forward, but it would be substantially reduced if we had a place to go. But the bottom line is, if the mayor said tonight that he wasn't going to give a pilot, that these developers don't need a pilot, and if they sincerely can't develop that property to make a decent return on investment, they can always sell it. Because I keep saying this all the time. Big pieces of property less than 15 miles from Midtown Manhattan just have value just on their own. And that's why the owners of Essex Green paid over $100 million for their property and didn't even bother with redevelopment. Mr. Bennett, I appreciate you coming on and pointing out some of the disappointments of how the council investigation of what happened to you and your wife was cut short. I still don't understand that, and I hope that perhaps you guys could provide some additional information that might change the mind of some of the council people, because I think that's what we really need. That's all, Council President. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Matthew Brown.
Thank you, Council President. I want to start off with Mr. Joe Fagan. Thank you for that update. I did reach out to the Chief of Police and he responded in kind. I'm happy to hear that the partnership has already started and is involved on calls. It's a relief to know that we are heading in the right direction. I did ask if council was allowed to participate in observations in whatever that looked like to them, obviously with respect to HIPAA, but at least some insight into what the training is for our police department and how the mental health associates of Essex and Morris are handling those. So I do appreciate the chief taking the time to respond, as well as a gentleman from Robert Davidson from the Mental Health Associates who will be talking to later on the week, just to continue to stay informed and help the public stay informed as well. So thank you for that update, Mr. Fagan. And also just wanted to point out, since Mr. Fagan was on earlier, he spent about 10 years, Mr. Fagan, trying to raise awareness about a resident who lived in West Orange many years ago. He's done publications, articles, as well as videos. And long story short, we are having finally an unveiling of a marker for one of our residents. I don't want to give you too much information because I'm hopeful that some of you can attend the unveiling. It's at Territory Corner on Main and Washington Street at 2 in the afternoon. So I wanted to publicly thank Mr. Fagan. When he put that information out there, I called him and worked with Shannon Gattens, who's my appointee on the HRC, the Human Relations Commission, as well as Dr. David Jones, Megan Brill from the Downtown West Orange Alliance, as well as Ron, and I don't want to forget his name, but he's now the new chair of the Downtown West Orange Alliance, I believe. So just, Ron Raymond. So just a huge set of gratitude to everyone who came together to make sure that this was happening. And I'll post on my social media as well, so some of you can attend. Mr. Bennett, I'll start with you. Thank you for coming on, and you did not sound nervous at all. You sounded quite like a professional. I am sorry that it is a disappointment that the council has decided not to pursue an investigation in this regard. I felt personally that there are other avenues that you can explore, particularly since our tax assessor, not just our tax assessor, but tax assessors are quasi-judicial appointments. So while they're hired by the municipality, their direct supervisors are the county. So in this case, the immediate supervisor for our tax assessor is the Essex County Board of Taxation. And they would be I would say that they would be the department to contact with a concern. And, you know, and I'm going to be very honest. I think that if the council would have decided to proceed with an investigation and the council would have appointed an investigator, and I want to put that in air quotes, should that determination not have been favorable, then it would have been, you know, something that, you know, allegations of not an independent person having been appointed. I think that the best route is for Mr. Bennett and your wife, Michaela, to contact the county and see what guidance they give you with respect to filing a complaint for your allegations of misconduct. And that's where I am with this. I just want to see anyone else that spoke with regards to Mr. Puglisi. I thank you always for coming on and sharing your information. With respect to the all the comments about Resolution 178 and 179 that's on the agenda that is pulled, there is going to be executive session. I will tell you that while I was not here for the designation that was made in 2017, I was here for the pilot vote and I did vote in favor of the pilot. I will remind everyone that I do try to be as transparent as I can. And when I say try to be as transparent as I can, it's because obviously sometimes there are conversations that happen in executive session that by law we are not able to disclose. So those things I cannot disclose, but I do post my thoughts and my process, my research. I share links over every decision that I make. So while it is easy and sometimes salacious to say, you know, they just vote because that's what they're told to do, that is not my position. And I can only speak for myself. The fact that it's on tonight's agenda, I'm interested in listening to hear what the administration has to say. A lot of things have changed with respect to the climate, the business climate, the exodus of the apartments in New York City to our beautiful suburban 12 miles away from New York town. There's a lot to discuss. I'm not going to state a position at this time because I think it would be premature to do so. But I'm going to listen and have that discussion with my council colleagues. I do want to say that while we may disagree on some positions, I do appreciate the public always being present, particularly our advocates who face some challenges along the way, but it's always a learning experience for me to listen to you. And again, we might not agree all of the time, but I am listening and hopefully learning and growing along the way. With respect to the tree ordinance, I know it's not exactly what our Green West Orange suggested, and we will be talking about that later. I would like to see, I was doing some research as well, I would like to see our council embrace the idea of a tree commission, which is outside of the administration. Maplewood has one, I think Milburn has one. There's a lot of things that we as a community can do to make sure that there are checks and balances in protecting our canopy. I think that's important. So I'm hopeful to have that discussion with my council colleagues. I've started to, you know, draft resolution in that regard. I mean, I'm sorry, an ordinance in that regard. I still have to work on it, but I want to say that I think that the tree ordinance as it stands now at the very minimum has tree companies having to register. And I think that, and I won't speak for my council colleagues, but for myself, I will be keeping it on the radar to make sure that I respond and follow up on enforcements, because I understand that that is one of the issues that allows just the removal of trees without any consequences, because there are very limited fees or enforcement. With respect to the tree on Old Indian Road, I too thank Mr. Lepore and our forester, Mr. Linton, and the homeowner who I also met with last week. It is a beautiful tree. I completely understand the concern in that area. I'm hopeful, and I know that she emailed the council as a whole, I'm hopeful that we can come to some sort of agreement when things like these are happening, when there are road repairs that have to be made, and there are plans that are drawn up obviously by our professionals, because that's what they're hired to do, that prior to those plans coming to the council, that the council just is assured, and I know we've asked this in the past, have there been surveys? I think we should make sure that we have all of that before we approve the work that is proposed. And again, I have heard my council colleagues ask whether or not there was a survey done, let's say on Rock Spring Road when we were talking about the tables. I want to be more vigilant, and that's a commitment, but it's a start in the right direction with respect to the tree ordinance. Let's see what else. I do want to say and reiterate that I'm not okay telling our residents that they come here and they don't know what they're talking about. I take exception to that, and actually I'm a little offended by it because everyone takes the time out of their incredibly busy schedules to come here to be heard. And sometimes I don't like what you have to say, but that's okay. I asked for your vote, and that's what I'm here for. So thank you for coming out and speaking. With respect to, and I think several people mentioned Mr. Gross's part-time position at Dover, and I will say that I was completely taken aback by it, and I did immediately reach out to the administration on, I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday night, but the very next morning, it must have been Saturday night when I saw the article. The mayor did respond. He did say that the circumstances with Dover having a new mayor and having had their interim chief financial officer resign effective September 9th. Our mayor is the risk assessment, I don't know what you call it, analyst person for Dover, and that was his recommendation to try and help a new mayor pay the bills. And while I completely understand that, I am still not satisfied. I am still not comfortable. When I read the resolution, Dover Resolution 2232020, I was a bit confused, and maybe Mr. Gross, you can clarify this since you're on. That resolution named a John Barrett of PM Consultants to provide the chief financial services and treasurer services at an hourly rate of $165, not to exceed $17,500, which obviously is a consultant fee. But I'm a bit confused as how, if they're naming John Barrett, how you are the chief financial officer interim part-time. And could you also, for complete transparency with respect to the salary that Dover, well, I don't know if you call a consultant salary a salary, but what you are being compensated for by Dover. Can you clarify that?
I can't speak to their resolutions, and in terms of the one that you're talking about, I don't know who that person is, and I can't speak to it. They, like as I said, under the category perhaps of no good deed goes unpunished. A town in need reached out and asked if I could help. I said I would. They agreed to pay me the same hourly rate that I make from West Orange, and that's really the long and the short of it.
Yeah, and I understand the willingness to assist. I think that Mayor Dover, being new mayor, is finding her way around her office and her administration, and certainly needs the help, because there are gaps in her administration that she needs to fill. But I still, from my perspective as a full-time employee, most of my calls to you and my colleagues happen either at lunchtime or at the end of the day when I am not on the clock for my first job. So I just still feel that your first commitment and responsibility is to our taxpayers.
I could not agree with you more. And the 60 to 70 hours a week that I give West Orange will continue to get, West Orange will continue to get that 60 to 70 hours a week. To the extent that I'm helping out somebody else, it's on my own personal time, and it will have no way have any impact on the service that I'm giving to West Orange, nor you.
And just for further transparency, for the sake of the public, I obviously did some research, and while I am not happy that we have to share our CFO, there are no ethical regulations that we are breaking by that. In fact, what I found was that CFOs, much like our municipal clerk, they are able to have shared services with other municipalities, much to my dismay, as I would not like to share our Madam Clerk. I don't want to share our CFO either. But for transparency's sake, and I want the public to understand, and you can look this up yourselves as well, it is not illegal or unethical for Mr. Gross to have this agreement with another township. So wanted to be sure that that was also out there, so we all understand that there's no nothing unethical or illegal about this.
Everyone should also be aware that I came to West Orange while doing a shared service with another town. When I came to West Orange, I came from South Orange, where I was the administrator CFO, and when I came to West Orange, I continued for about another 2 years to being their CFO while being the CFO for West Orange. And so, you know, it's a unique shared services. You're absolutely right. You know, there are 565 municipalities in the state, and there are not 565 certified municipal finance officers. So it is very common. I'm just going to reiterate that anybody that knows me knows the length of the work and what I do, and I stand on that, and I don't think that I need to say any more about that. And I will also tell you that whatever it is I'm doing anywhere else is not going to impact on the quality of work that I do for West Orange. Never has, never will.
Thank you, Mr. Gross. And I just had one final question. This is with respect to, and Mr. Kuby, thank you for coming on and taking the time to express, as always, the position of the library and their desire to be in a new space. But maybe, Mr. Gross, you can answer this question, or I'm not sure if Mr. Trent can. With respect to the library construction bond, that financing, should everything, you know, not happen, as a result of, you know, if there is no designation, there is no pilot, there is nowhere for the library to move, would the library construction bond financing still be available to the library to rehabilitate or remodel or expand their current location?
I can't say for certainty, but logic would lead me to the path that it probably not, but we don't know. I don't know at this point the definitive answer to that.
Okay, I think that I have said, I've responded to everyone. Just thank you to Ms. Morelli. I certainly appreciate your words of wisdom. We don't always agree, but I always welcome you to our meetings and welcome your voice of experience. So thank you for always being present. And Council President, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman McCartney.
Okay, thank you. I do want to just clarify one thing. I'm getting a notice here. Okay. I've heard the word blighted here on Executive Drive. That term has never been used during any of the designation that came before the Planning Board or the Council. It's never been considered a blighted area. And I wanted to say that I did vote yes initially on this area needed redevelopment because I certainly didn't want to see the area deteriorate any further. At that time, we did have a $4 million tax appeal that the town had to settle, and there were 58% vacancies. So I do look forward to this executive drive to see how we will proceed with this project. If we proceed with this project. I appreciate Dave Kuby's 2019 comment on the 2019 Redevelopment Act and advocating as always for your library. Even on Executive Drive, I know it was before COVID, but COVID now has made such a dramatic impact on businesses. We don't know what's going to happen with Essex Green. As Councilman Guarino expressed, it has had a dramatic impact on our business community and on apartment dwelling. So I still think that there is a need there, and I look forward to the executive session on that. I wanted to thank Joe Fagan. Joe, that was really wonderful to hear the co-partnership between the mental health and the police department. Our West Orange Police Department, I'm proud of them and the work that they do initiate. There have been other pilot programs that West Orange puts forward. So thank you for that update. I was a little confused why the tree ordinance is considered obstructing. I thought we were making a step in the right direction. I think it is very important to have licensed tree experts and tree care operators following the provisions in the Licensing Act from the DEP. I thought that was very important just for the safety of our residents, liability reasons, and safety measures all around. The survey that we were talking about, it's not a survey of the area, it's survey of the property line, and that is addressed also in this ordinance to exclude trees close to the property boundaries in an effort to prevent disputes between the neighbors, which we have seen before. The comment about enforcement came up at our last meeting, and again, yes, I would like to see this ordinance adopted. And the enforcement, our current tree ordinance talks about the forester. I would like to see that expanded to include police, building inspectors, even our township engineer, if deemed necessary. I wanted to thank the municipal clerk for coming on. Karen, thank you for your timely information on this upcoming election.
You're welcome.
And also Joe Fagan, thank you, or Cindy actually, thank you for the comment on the historical marker, because that was initiated a long time ago, as I read in Shannon's email by Joe, and now taking the initiative to find the funding and the design for the beautiful marker. So nice comments. I think, Cindy, thank you again for the advice that you gave Mr. Bennett on the tax assessor's letter and how to pursue an investigation. And I think, Rosary, you are relentless. You have always been relentless for as long as I have known you. And it does open our eyes often to see both sides. We don't always agree, but it does put things in perspective to make for better informed decisions on what we do. So thank you, everyone, for the comments.
Thank you.
And Anthony Puglisi, also thank you for the additional testing sites and changing the age for children to be tested as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay, a few things to unpack. First of all, going back to Councilwoman Matut's comments, it is not, as she stated, it is a common practice for some joint shared services with other townships. For example, our health director, she is a shared service with Roseland for us, so part of her salary is paid through Roseland. And I know Mr. Gross is savvy enough. If this extends to any length of time, I'm sure he'll work something out to benefit the township. And also, I need to add, there's been many a Saturday and a Sunday, because I have a long work week where I'm on the road a lot and always can't get to the phone during when Mr. Gross is here for his 40 hours. And there's been many hours he's given me on a Saturday and a Sunday on his time, and I want to thank him for that. So moving forward, I'm sure he'll be able to balance his time, and we'll benefit from it. Joe Fagan, again, thank you for pointing this program out with our police department, and kudos to them. A lot of residents will benefit from the health services, and we appreciate that. Mr. Bennett, thank you so much for coming on. You were so articulate, and I agree with my colleague, you didn't sound nervous whatsoever. So I also originally had asked for us to look into this, and we decided to get a statement from the tax assessor, which he gave us a very detailed 3-page report. And then actually my colleague, she had followed up and asked for some additional information, which was provided to us in regards of another error that had occurred. And to me, the common denominator is on the other property, and hopefully the tax office had corrected it. Both properties had carriage houses. So that to me was a common denominator. And I think, that could have had something to do with the error. In regards to property maintenance and zoning, I know it's frustrated when someone gives, when someone gives an anonymous tip to the property maintenance people, that happens all the time. It's very common. I actually get calls from residents asking me to report things sometimes because neighbors don't want to report things to other neighbors. And when they are reported anonymously, you know, that has to stay there. So that is a common practice. It's been there for years with complaints. So with all that being said, your wife is very detail oriented, and she had sent numerous detailed emails to us, which I appreciate. I always like to hear the other side. So I appreciate receiving all of those emails. And, you know, as Councilwoman Matu Brown said, you know, this, you know, could go further because the county, you know, would oversee something. But from what I saw and what the majority of us saw, we decided not to move forward. But thank you. And I'm sorry that you're frustrated. With that, in regards to the tree ordinance, which I'll talk now very quickly, someone made a comment. You know, my decision was made that evening before Councilwoman McCartney spoke. I felt it was important to move forward on it, and I do tonight. We could continue to tweak this. This is a work in progress, but we talk about enforcement. And to get the tree companies registered, that's that. I mean, we have to get that done because we have had situations, we have the existing ordinance, and I don't think any changes is going to change from the enforcement. So we really have to get these tree companies on board, and we have to get them registered, and that's going to start tomorrow. So with that, we will tweak this. Gary Van Wyck, always enjoyable conversations with you in regards to educating me on the canopy. And we're going to continue to work on this. I appreciate Mr. Lepore's efforts. I know he's been down with the residents with road repair, trying to work with them individually. And from seeing the emails, I haven't had time because I've been busy with my other day job to get over to the residents' property, but keeping in contact with Mr. Lepore, and I appreciate, and he's going to be here later this evening so he could speak upon it. So we appreciate all his efforts in working with our residents, and hopefully they can resolve the issues at hand. Okay, so with that, Ms. Morelli, you're right. We should always listen. I do try to listen and try to listen to all the difference of opinions. I do get a little frustrated when it is election time. And sometimes not all the facts are presented, but that's okay. That's what I guess politics are all about. I'm just not used to that still. This is only going to be my second term. I've only served one term. I still have a lot of work to do. I don't find myself an irresponsible person. I find myself an extremely responsible person dedicating 30 hours a week to this community for what's supposed to be a part-time job. And I enjoy it, and I'm very dedicated. I have been very responsible through the years in obtaining millions of dollars worth of grants for this community from private partner. We just were able to work with our senior services department, and they work really hard, and we were able to obtain over $100,000 in grants to save this community funds and expand our senior programming, and getting recognized by AARP as the 13th age-friendly community in the state of New Jersey in a quick 4 years. So very proud of that. And very responsible when it comes to redevelopment and affordable housing obligations that we have to meet. Pilots are given not because we feel like it, but because we get something back for it. One of the reasons why I had voted for this project was for the givebacks. And my colleague, Councilman Kukoviak, was absolutely correct. They could have did this without a pilot, but we weren't getting a $6 million building to move our library. In that building, no one mentioned the $600,000 a year in rental income we were going to receive from taking title to that building immediately. It would increase our revenue by $600,000, not to mention saving the $4 million in tax appeals that I'm interested to hear from Mr. Trank on how that's going to go when we do meet in executive session later. So those are big numbers. 1.5 million from this developer to make improvements on the $6 million building that we were going to take title to with the $600,000 rental income. And the dog park was valued over $500,000 project. That knocking on many doors in West Orange, a lot of people have dogs in this community that would have benefit from that amenity in addition to the township. So, you know, Mayor always says we just don't give out pilots. In fact, there's been many developers looking to develop that private road, Ridge Road, that many folks have advocated for open space and wanted us to take 1.5 million open space funds to purchase. But these developers want a pilot on it, and you know, we're not interested in giving a pilot on a piece of property that is not in that kind of danger. So again, we just don't give pilots away. I was not here when the pilot was formulated for downtown West Orange with Edison Lofts, but that project, even crippled with COVID right now, is still obtaining new renters. They're coming from not just West Orange, they're coming from Livingston, Glen Ridge. People are selling their larger homes. They are enjoying the amenities of that gorgeous building. And right now, that building didn't cost the taxpayers any dollars, but we have increased value on the tax revenue there, almost well over $500,000 right now. And as the rentals increase, the revenue will increase. So we look forward to that. So again, projects have to make sense. We just don't, and I love to, you know where the math came from $100 million that we're giving away. So projects have to make sense. And moving forward, I look forward to talking to Mr. Trank or listening to what he has to say. That's what we'll do. We're going to weigh. Not to say, Mr. Kuby, I appreciate all your efforts and the library board's efforts and the time and dedication that was put into that project. And, you know, the Construction Bond Act, that's another thing. We're in jeopardy of losing that funds because that grant is specific to that, to 10 Rooney, to that building, not to the current site, but to 10 Rooney. So we will lose those funds as well. So to answer my colleague's question, no, that project won't be happening because that grant was designated for that site only. So there was a lot on the table. No one's more frustrated than me, timing of everything. You know, so we're just gonna move forward, and that's what we do as elected officials. We don't do what make decisions that look good for us, but what looks good for, you know, what will be best for our community. So with that, I appreciate all the speakers for speaking. I do value your difference of opinions. That's what we're here for. And, but again, there's facts that sometimes get left out when we're trying to educate the public. And I too have been knocking on doors, and there's many people that want to see affordable housing. Let's not forget the 65 senior affordable housing units that would go down at the current site, and another loss. So a lot of losses right now, and hopefully we could see if that could get turned reversed. So with that being said, I'm going to close our public comment. I see the public comment was closed, so anybody who was trying to join, this part of the meeting is over, so I apologize. If you couldn't get on, you could always email us a question if you have one. And with that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Madam Clerk.
Okay. We're going to review the consent agenda, approval of minutes of previous meeting, public meeting, September 8th, 2020.
Consent.
So moved.
Consent.
Report of township officers, none. Reading of petitions and communications and bids, none. Bills, are there any questions on the bills?
Consent.
Okay, resolutions, resolution 17820 and 17920 are being pulled this evening. Are there any other resolutions being pulled?
I had one resolution that I want to pull, 176, please.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, anyone else?
I have a question.
I have two questions.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to go in order because it's easier. Councilman Guarino?
Hi, yes, on resolution 180-20, the question is the savings of $13,000 for the adjustment to the contract for professional services. Mr. Gross, how did you come about with the savings between the 18 additional meetings and the cost of overtime and scheduling?
Yeah, when we looked at the original resolution and then started scheduling, we realized that we had an opportunity to schedule for the police department using their training days. They had in the patrol department or the patrol officers, they have particular training days and they hadn't used them this year because of the corona. So in order to meet their schedules so that they could attend without incurring any overtime, we needed additional sessions. And as it turns out, even though there's an increased cost for additional sessions, that increased cost is about $13,000 less than we would have spent on the overtime previously.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Gross. Thank you, Council President.
Okay, Councilman Kukoviac?
Yeah, I just, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to ask how we're going to be proceeding, because I know sometimes you handle this portion of the meeting by saying, does anybody else have a question about that resolution? So I wasn't sure if that was the time for me to ask another question.
So I am going to see if you have any questions on any of the other resolutions. So if no one else had any questions on the resolution, Councilman Guarino just had a question on, I'm going to move on to you and you could go with the next resolution.
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay.
I just wanted to know if that was the time I should raise the issue, but thank you. Thank you.
So you have a question on another resolution, Councilman?
Yes, but I wasn't sure. Was Councilman Guarino finished? I wasn't, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I thought he was. Councilman, are you?
I'm done.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Proceed, Councilman.
Okay, thank you. On resolution 17320, this is the resolution to borrow a little over $3 million to help fund the infrastructure at the joint meeting sewage processing plant that we're a member of. I was wondering the meaning behind the line that talked about FEMA is going to fund up to 90% of the cost, I guess to West Orange, perhaps probably to everybody. And I wanted to get a better feel for what that meant, because the wording says fund up to 90%. And I think it makes a big difference to our finances if we get 90% reimbursement from FEMA, so we don't have to borrow that money, or whether it might be as small as 30%. So I wondered if Mr. Gross could provide that.
Sure, Mr. Gross.
First off, we do have to borrow the money. This is the short-term borrowing. Later on is when FEMA comes in and pays, and when they do, then that'll be used to pay down this short-term debt. So that's the action you're taking tonight. Is basically you've already approved the expenditure and the bond itself. This is just the form for the selling of the notes going along with it. To answer your question directly, It ain't over till it's over. We're anticipating 90%. We've been indicated that it's going to be 90%. And until we have the 90% in our hand, it's still May. So.
And when will we know, do you have a timetable so that you know when we might know what the reimbursement level is going to be?
It took us 5 years to get the money back from the hurricane down the shore.
Sandy.
Sandy. took us 5 years to get the money back for that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's the case. I think this is more, it's a much bigger project or different kind of project. I think you're probably talking 2 to 3 years, but we won't know till then.
Okay. The borrowing that we will then have to do short term, will that be added to our issued and authorized debt amount?
Already has been.
Okay. So when the council majority approved the capital budget and the borrowing related to that, I guess the last council meeting, that put us at that point, $104 million in change, $104 million in change in our issued and outstanding debt. Did that number already include this $3 million plus borrowing?
Yeah, you might recall that you actually adopted some months ago a bond ordinance of this amount, and so then it was included in the supplemental debt statement at that time.
Okay, so thank you for remembering for me. I also had a couple of questions about Resolution 17720.
Councilman.
Regarding a tax appeal settlement regarding 125 Northfield Avenue and 21 Hutton. The first one is the apartment building there, and the second one is, I think, an office building. I was confused by the description of what was going on, so I just wondered if I could just ask a couple of questions, because this all seems to start out with an error from this started out with asking the council to approve this settlement earlier in the year. Now it's coming back because there was a discovery, I think by the special tax council, that there was a mistake in the agreement, and that it does not appear we should have included an increase in the assessment on 125 Northfield from $6 million to $7.1 million in the tax year 2018. And the effect of that, I guess, I just did a ballpark number, is like $40,000 in tax revenue that we would have gotten, but now we're not getting. But Mr. Gross, can you tell me what the mistake was and how it came about?
I can address it.
Okay, maybe Mr. Trent can.
So there was never a mistake. It was a mistake in the Scrivener's in when it got to you. What happened, as you can see in the form of resolution, is that a property owned by the same taxpayer, they agreed to waive their appeals. So therefore, this increased assessment for this 1 year was therefore part of that negotiation. So apparently, when it got from the settlement to me, to you, it was just an issue with regard to the form of the resolution you got. So all this is doing is clarifying. It removes the tax appeal that would have been against us. We still get the benefit of the increase going forward. We just don't get it for that 1 year, I think 2018, but we do get it for the benefit of the years going forward. So again, it was literally just an error in how it was communicated to me, and then I prepared the resolution based upon that. And then when they went to implement it, they recognized the error and said it needs to be clarified.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand this. So the 2018 increase in the tax assessment shouldn't have been included.
That was traded, that basically was resolved. And yes, you're absolutely right, because they were agreeing to give up a defensive tax appeal against us on a property that is a different property, and it's set forth in the resolution. Yeah.
And so, and do I correctly assume that the trade-off of the two numbers, roughly $40,000 for the 2018 assessment increase, roughly what you estimated the value of 2021 Hutton?
No, absolutely not. That's not that math analysis is not. I've not made that math analysis. I'm not aware that that's even part of this. It wasn't a trade-off. The settlement never apparently contained a increase in the assessment for 2018 because the taxpayer was agreeing to waive. Now, I don't know that they're apples to apples, meaning the numbers are identical. Again, if you're interested in knowing the numbers, then obviously Mr. Gross can consult with the tax collector and look at it. We can get you all the numbers. We can get you the numbers anytime, any place with regard to any tax appeal. So it's all a math issue, but I do not know that it was a straight up, as you're suggesting, trade financially.
Okay, could I just ask for the council to get, I guess, a more detailed explanation of sort of the math behind this at some point, please?
Sure, absolutely, no problem. And again, I'm more than willing at any point to set up a conference call with you or any council member and our tax appeal counsel on any tax appeal. So feel free to reach out to me at any point. We'll get you a specific math analysis on this one.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is if you could provide us the math analysis, and then we can set up a call in case I have any further questions. Maybe it'd save us the time of a call if the math resonates with me.
Yeah, but again, I just want to be clear. It's not a math. The settlement was. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio. At least that's not my information. So I don't want you to believe or to say there's a gotcha moment when the math is going to be whatever the math is. And the math is based upon the expert opinion of the people involved in these issues. So I'll be glad to get you the math on this and any other tax matter you'd like.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Trank.
You're very welcome.
Also had a question on resolution 180-20, and that was the one that Councilman Guarino talked about. Can anybody on the call talk about what the curriculum of the training is going to be about? Have we seen a curriculum, or do we know what it's about?
I'll be happy to get you an agenda for it. You all are going to be invited, so you'll get to see it, hopefully. And we'll get you an agenda.
Sounds good. Just a quick question, if you've already seen the agenda. Does it involve?
I have not.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have not.
I said the opposite. We don't have.
So just to clarify, so we've agreed to have this training done, but is it just that no one on the call has seen the curriculum, or that no one in the town has seen the curriculum?
I think the chief.
I was going to say that it's not that no one has seen it. I have not seen the agenda. You know, I think everybody has their own idea about what this is. The chief, I think, probably could speak to it if you wanted more detail.
Okay. Yeah, if you could send me the agenda, I'd appreciate it. Just,
okay.
Just the parameters of how long this is going to go and that sort of thing.
Can I just, Councilman Kukorviak, to your question, when this resolution was on, all of that information was attached to the original resolution, where Dr. Jones broke down what the parameters of the training were going to be. Not exactly the dates and times, but you know, who it was going to encompass, and then what the subject matters, or if you will, curriculum in your terms, were going to be. That is, I don't have it right in front of me, but that is what was attached to the resolution when we initially approved it. So I'm sure it's online.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I did miss that because I think I was so blown away by Dr. Jones's resume or CV. He's got a very impressive CV. So I'll go look for that. Thank you very much for that remark.
You're welcome.
Council President, that's all I had on the resolutions.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So Councilwoman Matute Brown, did you have any other questions?
Yes, I did.
You pulled.
Yes, in addition to the one I pulled, yes. I just wanted to, and I get why Councilman Kukorviak asked if we were gonna ask during the same topic, but I'm gonna go back to Resolution 177. And just to, for the public's sake, if you're not looking at the actual resolution, the settlement is for years settlement of tax appeals is for year 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So for 2015, 16, 2017, and 2018, the total requested judgment is $6 million. And then in 2019, it's $7.2 million. And then 2020 is $7.25 million. Is that what I'm understanding? So they stipulated to waiving their appeal for 21 Hutton Avenue for the settlement of 7.2 and 7.25 for years 19 and 20.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct, Councilman. Yes.
Yeah, I was confused where we were with that, but thank you for that. I do have another question for resolution 174, and Mr. Gross, thank you for your response to this. I think you said that Mr. Lepore was going to be at the meeting to address this. This is resolution 174 is authorizing the township to accept a grant in the amount of $63,956 from the HDSRF program to fund the preliminary assessment and site investigation for the property 8 to 10 Central Avenue. So when I was looking, doing some research on the Central Avenue redevelopment area, which consists of 6 lots, it was an abandoned industrial site that was subjected to Brownsfield remediation program. And at the time in 2016, there was a report that indicated that there was contamination levels that were above the NJDEP standards. Is this to address that?
Is
Yes,
Mr. Lepore on the call, or?
I can address it though. I've been working on this for the better part of the last decade. So as you correctly state, Councilwoman, this is part of the Brownsfield development area. Councilwoman McCartney's been involved in this, and specifically, we own title to this property. We're not responsible for any past issues. However, this is part of, as you correctly state, the redevelopment area, and Joe Alpert has been designated the interim redeveloper. Before he will move forward with constructing the 3rd building on Central Avenue, and as you are aware, the first 2 buildings are basically fully occupied now. Before he'll move forward, he's not going to buy a contaminated property. So that this money and this grant is critical to define the scope of the remediation or the remedy so that a residential project, and it's, again, it is certainly hoped that a cap, and it is believed that a cap will be the appropriate remedy so that it'll be environmentally safe and the groundwater will be acceptable. But that is part of what the Matrix Consulting Company has been working with us on, and that's exactly what this resolution is about.
And then I thank you for that understanding and clarification. I did also have a concern with respect to the letter awarding the grant is dated February 3rd, 2020, and it requires, well, there is a stipulation that it should have been returned to the authority by June 2nd, 2020. Otherwise, they were not going to, the commitment would be terminated. 2 questions in that regard. Was there an extension requested and provided? And why wasn't this presented to council in February?
That's for COVID.
Ms. Gross, you're on mute.
Mr. Gross, you're muted.
Yeah, was it because of COVID?
I apologize. Yeah, there were automatic extensions on all of these because of COVID.
Yeah.
All right, so there's no concern that there's no engagement anymore. Okay, that's the question I had on that. I just want to see if there's any other question that I had. Mr. Kukorviak, Councilman Kukorviak asked the questions that I had for 177. No, and then I'll just wait since I pulled the other resolution. That's it for me, Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman McCartney, any questions on
Well, I wanted to pick
the
up
resolutions?
on that resolution 174 with the Biddleman property on Central Avenue. That grant funding is coming from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection from the Economic Development Authority for hazardous discharge site remediation funds. So that's where the grant funding is coming from, not something that we applied for. Just
Thank you, Councilwoman.
and
And
I do have a question on, I think I answered my own question, but it was on resolution, John, this is for you, 181-20, with the cost of mailing. I think initially when I read it, I was thinking on top of the 18%, we were going to charge $25. But now I read where it be for the tax sale and not for the general tax base. So it is not,
yeah, it's tax certificate.
it's not for the resident.
This is for the tax sale.
For the tax sale, yes.
It does get attributed to the residents if they're, as part of the tax sale, becomes part of their cost. So to the extent that a property owner allows their property to go into condition where they haven't paid their taxes and they're subject to a tax sale, they pay, the costs get attributed to them. And then it's also offset by obviously the people who bid as well. But the township doesn't, even though we pay up front, we get all that money back.
With the tax sale. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And I just wanted to add on Resolution 174, the property, Mr. Trank, 810 Central Avenue, that's where a parking lot's going to be placed, correct?
Well, again, it'll be subject to the final redevelopment. I believe it'll be shared parking. The parking will be intended to help that whole area, including Luna, the Luna Theater, and hopefully additional economic and other projects in that area.
And Mr. Gross, I understand that a question on 180 for the training. I understand you switched it this way because you're going to save $13,000 with overtime, which is great, but are we teetering on having to bid this out at this amount?
No.
No, we're okay. We're still under the threshold for private service? Okay. Okay, great. All right, with all that being said, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is implemented. Councilwoman Matute Brown pulled 17620, resolution authorizing the collector of taxes to rebate payment to the listed taxpayer pursuant to final judgment by the tax court of New Jersey.
Okay, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Council President. Just had a question actually to almost all of the tax rebates refunds that we're issuing. So for let's say block 125.0233, assessed at $615,500. When I looked at the property, the history, that has been the assessed value since 2011. And now we're looking at a reduction of $100,000. Why was that reduction made? What changed for and this property is located at 385-391 Main Street, which is a gas station, I believe, gas service repair station. Is that correct?
That particular part, well, all of these properties are all subject to tax court judgments that we've received. So based on going to tax court, now whether or not that was a settlement or whether it was an order from the trial, I don't know the answer to that. We can get that for you. We could set, again, as Mr. Trent said, we can set up an opportunity for you to review this with our counsel.
So then if these are all, and I do see that they were judgments, I would be curious to know, and I think that perhaps my council colleagues would also want to know, particularly when looking at one property, block 16827.02, 563 Northfield Avenue, where that's also a significant reduction. When I looked up their tax history, they were before the planning board or the zoning board in 2017, I believe, for some updates. So I'm curious as to why these reductions, this judgment was made, whether it was a judgment or a settlement. That's the area of the Dunkin' Donuts on Northfield at 563 Northfield Avenue.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then also there is another property that is owned by Zufall Health, block 88, block 29. There's two of them. And there is a reduction, while not significant. I wanted to know why, particularly since I read an article that Zufall Health is going to be, in 2018 was supposed to be, or they celebrated a groundbreaking for a $4.5 million building. I know they're federally funded, but I just wanted to know whether or not, why that reduction was being made, and whether or not that was a settlement or a judgment. So, while I realize they're judgments and these judgments are before the council to approve, I want to have a better understanding as to how we get to these judgments.
Okay, first, just to be clear, since it's a judgment, it's more before the council to acknowledge than it is to approve. There's a court order. So, we're now required to do that within 60 days to pay it. And so that if council doesn't approve it, then you're going to have to defend. We'll have to defend that action against the judgment. But I can tell you conceptually, and it really doesn't. It's not. I guess it's enticing, or it's to look at, see who owns a property and what their status is or what their potential financial ability is. But that really has nothing to do with the assessments on the property. The assessments on the property is what would in a fair open market, what they sell for, what is the value. And the owner of the property has either convinced a judge or our staff, who are very aggressive at protecting our assessments, that indeed their property is not worth what we had it assessed for. Whether it had been assessed for 9 years that way or not, again, every property has a particulars, and that you certainly can see all of that and see why the cases went the way they did, and we can make arrangements for you to meet with again, our professionals to do that. But that's the reason why. It is all about value, and it's not about anything else.
And these are judgments. These are judgments that have been approved by the tax court.
I understand that they're judgments, but I also understand that the judgments can come by way of settlement negotiations. I want to understand how we got there. That was my question. So
do you have do you have
we've offered to set up a meeting with
and I would appreciate that. I'd love that opportunity.
I'll coordinate it tomorrow, Councilwoman. I'm more than willing to do that.
Thank you. That was all the questions I had, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay.
Is there a motion to approve 176-20?
Second.
Councilman Guarino?
Muted.
Sorry, yes.
Councilman Krakowiak?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
No.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Did you say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Council President Castellino?
Yes.
Okay, so the next one pulled is 178 and 179, but I know you wanted to go into executive session.
Yes, okay, yes. I need a motion to go back into the general session.
So moved.
Council
Make a motion to
President,
go
I make
back
a motion
into-
to go back into public session.
Okay, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So just for the public's viewing sake, we went into executive session to discuss resolutions 178-20 and 179-20 in regards to pending litigation. So I am going to have Mr. Trank make a statement to the public.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you all council persons. So again, we went into executive session to discuss matters of litigation. As the public is aware and as the council is aware, on September 11, 2020, the Appellate Division issued a 21-page opinion with regard to certain litigation that has been pending for about 2 years. And specifically, that Appellate Division decision found that there was not sufficient evidence in the record before the Planning Board and the Town Council to determine that the 70 acres that consist of Essex Green and Executive Drive meet or met the statutory criteria at the time that the planner testified and prepared his report. Specifically, the issue of the vacancy level in the buildings on Executive Drive was discussed by the Appellate Division, and whether or not discontinuance required that the buildings be fully vacant. The Appellate Division did, however, note at pages 20 and 21 that in 2019, there was a specific amendment made to the redevelopment law that clarified that under subsection 5B, that, quote, significant vacancies of such building or buildings for at least 2 consecutive years is now part of the criteria. And the Appellate Division on page 20 stated, quote, although it appears likely that the study area might well qualify for the designation as an area in need of redevelopment under the 2019 amendment to the redevelopment law, the absence of any information in the record about how long the vacancies in either the shopping center or the office park had persisted would prevent us from applying the current version of section 5B to affirm the trial court's decision upholding the designation. Accordingly, we invalidate the designation of the area as one in need of redevelopment and reverse the April 5, 2019 order that upheld it. So specifically, what is before the council tonight by way of resolutions 178-20 and 179-20 is to basically now refer back to the planning board in accordance with the redevelopment law to do a study as to whether or not a smaller area, a smaller footprint would qualify under the 2019 amendment as an area in need of redevelopment, as the Appellate Division found was, quote, likely. So specifically, the administration's proposal in 178-20 is that the only area that should be studied now is what consists of block 155, lots 40.02, 41.02, and 4202. Specifically, 100 Rooney, 10 Rooney, 100 Executive, and 200 Executive. We are not asking to refer back for any study or analysis, any part of Essex Green. Essex Green is not going to be part of the study for analysis as to whether or not it meets the area in need of redevelopment. In addition, 300 Executive Drive, which is a separate office building that was subject to a separate redevelopment plan that was never challenged in court, will not be part of any study area. So again, basically the request and the suggestion is that that this matter be referred back to the planning board to look at this limited footprint to determine that. So I do want to clarify, and again, there will be no pilot ever with regard to anything until the area is analyzed, this narrower area. There will never be a pilot for Essex Green because it's not part of the redevelopment and there won't be a pilot or any consideration for 300 Executive Drive. And again, tonight is not about a redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan, although it was approved, is now invalidated as a result of the appellate division decision. And now there has to be a study anew done. Resolution number 179-20 seeks to allocate the funds for higher gruel to analyze this narrower area to determine whether or not it meets the statutory requirement for an area of need of redevelopment. So the process, if this council were to adopt these two resolutions, is that Higher Gruel will do a study. Higher Gruel will present that study to the planning board. The planning board must have hearings, public hearings, at which the planners will testify and be available, and any other testimony will be taken by the planning board. And then the planning board will make a recommendation to this town council, and it will come back to the town council for final consideration as to whether or not the limited area that's now on the table meets the current statute. So the differences are clear. It's a different time frame. Obviously, we're now in 2020. It's got nothing to do with what existed in 2017, 18, or 19. It's what exists now. It's a different footprint, number two. And number three, the law has been changed. So those are all part of the ingredients that if this council approves 178 and 179-20, will now be analyzed under those criteria. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Trank. Okay, so let's take each resolution separately to vote on. Let's start with 178-20, a resolution authorizing the planning board to undertake a preliminary investigation to determine whether block 155 lots 40.02, 41.02, and 42.02 qualifies for designation as a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment. Madam Clerk.
Is there a motion to adopt 178-20?
So move.
Second.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Krokoviac?
Before I vote, I just wanted to flag that I would like to have some discussion before the next resolution instead of just going directly to a vote. But I vote no on this.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Just also wanted just to make a statement before
Sure.
before I voted. I hear a lot of things have changed, and that also includes the world that we live in today. I feel a little rushed in this decision before the council. We don't know what post-COVID looks like. I am not comfortable in this space right now. With this just being 11 days out, my vote is going to be no.
Okay.
Councilwoman McCartney?
My vote is going to be yes, to conduct a study to determine if 100 Executive Drive, 200, and 10 Rooney is an area to be considered for redevelopment.
Council President Castellino?
My vote is going to be yes. Matter of fact, you're right, the law has changed, which I believe is more favorable. I go back to the original project and all the benefits. And so I'd like for us to move forward. So yes.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution 179-20, resolution authorizing the retention of planning consultant to prepare an area in need of redevelopment investigation of block 155, lots 40-02, 100 Executive Drive, 41-02, 10 Rooney Circle, and 42-02, 200 Executive Drive in the amount not to exceed $30,000.
Okay.
Councilman Krokoviac, you had something you wanted to discuss?
Council President, is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
I just had several questions, but before I get to the questions, there were a couple of questions or issues that were raised before we got here about this during, I think, public comment. And I just wanted to follow up on that. Councilman McCartney sort of questioned the use of the word blight. And I know I've talked about this previously on redevelopment because it's been going on so long, but blight is actually the word that's used in the New Jersey Constitution, and it's how the law was referenced as to why we even have a law. So, and then if you look at the opinion, the appellate opinion that we were just sort of got us where we are now, the opinion, it's about a 21, 22 page opinion. It uses the word blight 4 times. So blight is an issue to a certain extent. And if, as I thought you said that the planning board didn't look at blight, maybe it's something that you want to go back to. And then Councilwoman Castellino, Council President Castellino, I think asked, where did this $100 million tax thing come from? And I don't know either, but I will just point out that there are basically 2 ways of looking at, just 2 general ways of looking at the financing, the financial setup or the infrastructure for these deals. One way is to compare what the property for redevelopment is generating now, and compare that to what it would be generating over the 30 years of the tax abatement and pilot. And by law, at the end of 30 years, the pilot has to equal the property taxes that would be paid. But it starts out much lower and then rises gradually, according to the law, over the 30 years. So it wouldn't be surprising if the number over 30 years is pretty much the same number that would be for if there was nothing done. The second way of looking at it is saying, okay, if the developer is going to build a $100 million property, that's with all the improvements, then what would be that impact with the pilot and without the pilot? And of course, if the developer did that without the pilot, then it would generate 100% of the property taxes very quickly, and would greatly outnumber the what was generated through the pilot. But, and I say the word but because that's always the word that's used, it's a phrase called but for, and the phrase is used to say that the developer wouldn't do their project at this size if it didn't have the pilot. So I suspect that some of this number comes from, not from comparing what it is now to what it generates now in property taxes compared to the pilot, but it tries to capture what would happen if they built the project or something close to that and then compared it to what we'd get with the pilot. And I know that's an argument. I'm not trying to fight it again, but I was just trying to explain to people who might have heard that what the sort of the situation is. And I think that's probably where it comes from, but you're right. I don't know either.
Well, and I want to make clear 2 things. One, there is nothing in the record that suggests anywhere near $100 million of tax benefits was ever being given anyone in the past. But of course, Mr. Gross can get those numbers. Mr. Hanley did a full analysis before this council voted on it. And as I think Councilman Kragowiak's pointing out, that number was never in the record, so to speak. Number 1. Number 2, pilots are not on the table tonight as part of this vote at all. No pilot will get implemented on any project without this council, number 1, finding eventually, after there's a record, if there is a sufficient record, that the area meets the criteria of the law as it currently exists, this limited area, and then this council considering a redevelopment plan. In addition, certainly any member of this council, and I'll set it up for you, has a right to ask the developer or the owner whether a project anywhere near this scope will even go forward without consideration of the redevelopment. So the project that existed, which is now off the table, pending whatever happens as part of the redevelopment, was contingent upon redevelopment. So, but again, none of that's before the council tonight because there is no redevelopment plan before anyone at this point.
Excuse me.
Go ahead. I have been asked to clarify we spent a tremendous amount of time, even during COVID and for the last 5 years, working on fulfilling our obligations to have affordable housing.
Yeah.
And part of this project, both on Executive Drive and the library site, was going to provide, I think, 164 and 63, about 127 or 128 affordable housing units, which was approved by the Superior Court and has been part of the ordinances that have been before the council and will continue to be. So obviously, that's not part of the redevelopment designation, but that was part of the aspects of the project that had existed.
So Mr. Trank, just to further clarify, whether it's this developer or if he sells and it's another developer that goes to build units here, there's a certain percentage that has to be affordable units, correct?
Yeah, yes, Executive Drive is 15% of the 425 units were required to be affordable. And with regard to the library site, 100% were going to be for seniors affordable.
So this $100 million number with the affordable units incorporated into that is just not feasible. But again, Mr. Gross could run those numbers.
Right. Again, never $100 million in tax breaks.
Yeah.
As Councilman Kukoviac has referred to, that may have been the number with all the improvements and whatnot. That was going to be basically the cost of building this ultimate project.
Okay. Okay. Councilman Guarino, do you have any comments, further comments?
Council President, this seems to be a continuing problem in which you give me the floor and then
Okay, I apologize, Councilman. When there's a long pause, I thought you were done. So continue.
You just interrupted me again.
Okay.
If I could just, if you give
Absolutely. I apologize. I thought you were done. Continue.
No, I'm not done. And I'll just say I yield the floor back to the Council President.
Okay, that's a great signal. Thank you.
It'll feel like Congress.
Oh, please don't do that to us.
Oh, I have absolutely no interest in doing that. I just have a few questions about the proposal, because and this is something I guess I throw out to Mr. Trank or maybe Mr. Gross. In the documents, both the resolution and the attachment which has the proposal from the Higher Gruel firm, it has no timetable in it. It doesn't say anything about how long it's going to take to bring it to fruition or deliver it to the planning board, the actual study. Is that a wise move? Should we try to amend that to put in a timetable or deadline or timeline?
Well, the short answer is no, because I want the planner has the burden to do their homework and do a thorough report. We're not going to have a procedural thing where we force it. I think a couple people, including people just now, said we're moving things quickly. So all we're doing here is giving it to them. Obviously, if you ask me what I believe is a reasonable, I certainly did ask that question. What's a reasonable period of time that the report can be done? Again, the goal is 30 days, but I'm not going to, we're not going to play gotcha on this. We want the report done correctly in conformance with the law so that the planning board can do its job. So if that means a few more days or a few less, again, Higher Gruel is done probably 100 different redevelopment studies in New Jersey. And I believe there is no one who's ever disputed that they're competent and qualified. And so we will, certainly you can be assured, Councilman Kukoviac, that there is nothing to be gained from the administration's point of view to having this lag, by the way. And that's exactly why, if the majority of the council has supported it being considered now, that's exactly why we put this before you 11 days after the determination so that we can find out and get this going, as opposed to, that's where the real work is done, in the redevelopment study and putting it together. But I don't know the exact date, and I have no idea when the planning board would hear it. That'll have to be coordinated between the planning board and Higher Growth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trank. I just wanted to follow up on that because the price that's stated in the proposal is roughly 400% of the amount that Mr. Greigel charged the town originally for a study of both Essex Green and Executive Drive. Now we don't have Essex Green and we don't have 300 Executive Drive, and yet they're still charging, I believe it's either 30 or 35,000. I don't have it in front of me.
That's a cap. That's a cap.
Right?
30,000.
So a little more than 4 times the cap on Mr. Greigel's. Is there some reason why it's so much more expensive?
The short answer is, this is the proposal that was provided based upon the scope of the work that's done, based upon the importance of the work, and based upon the market as it exists now. So basically, the administration doesn't see any benefit in letting this languish. It has an impact clearly on our library redevelopment. And so we basically do want this done as expeditiously as possible. So, and we believe, and the appellate division has put it clearly in the opinion, there needs to be a very thorough review of the vacancies over the last 2 years. So again, this is the proposal, and this is the recommendation of the administration to approve Higher Grewal that has done redevelopment work with regard to the library. And we believe that specifically Ms. Grewal is well equipped to get this done as expeditiously as possible and as thoroughly as possible in conformance with current law.
So thank you, Mr. Schenk, for that. Did you solicit any other proposals, or was this the only one?
This is the only one.
Okay, thank you. I also note that the proposal has no provision for requiring them to come before the town council. And this has happened twice before, where you have, I guess, directed the professionals that we used not to come before the council. And in the previous 2 instances, it actually said in the proposal that they would come before the council. This one does not have it. And I just want to flag it because I want them to come to the council, because it's at the council that we make this decision, vote yes or no on it. And I think we need to be able to question the professionals, or at least have the opportunity to do that.
And the reason that we recommend, meaning the law department recommends against that and is not providing the proposal, is because that is the role of the planning board. The planning board has the quasi-evidential aspect. If the planning board doesn't present you with a sound record and recommendation, then you have every right, as you did the first time, to vote against it. But the planning board is the body, and the difficulty with, I'll call it, setting it up the way you are suggesting, is you're going to have 2 trials, basically. We had 1 trial before the planning board, and as you can see, the appellate division, not the trial court and not the council, but the appellate court looked at the testimony of Mr. Greigel and found it was not sufficient. And so the bottom line of the story is, that's the planning board's job, and they need to do it. And either they'll do it or they won't do it with regard to Ms. Grewal, and then you'll get that record. But the problem with the scenario that you're outlining is they'll have 1 trial in front of the planning board, and then they're going to have, again, they're going to have another trial, basically. You're going to have Ms. Grewal come and do the same presentation that she did before the planning board, And then you're going to have the whole situation again, where you're going to have two different, basically competing records. And so again, in every instance that we've seen, the sound practice is for the planning board. The reason the planning board gets the process is to do their job. So that's why the proposal does not contain it. Higher Grove coming before the town council after you have the recommendation. I actually made it be revised, as you see, where they would be able to attend the planning board up to 3 sessions if that's what's required, so that they can answer every question and deal with every bit of evidence before the planning board.
So obviously, I respectfully disagree. What the planning board does is make a recommendation. They do not make the decision. That decision rests with the council. And I'll also just remind you that you have allowed at least one other professional to come speak before the council, and that was the planner who did the study on the Eagle Rock Avenue, Prospect Avenue proposed redevelopment area. I don't know what best practices are involved in this, but I really think it's important for the council members, if they have questions about the record that gets transmitted to us, that they have the expert who actually did the original testimony and research. And I would expect that what they say to the council would be exactly what they would say or had said or would have said to the planning board. I don't see that there would be any discrepancy there. And I'll just leave it at that. And that's all the questions, and yield the floor back to Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Guarino, do you have any comments or questions?
No, questions were answered. I was saying the proof for this is that there's so many benefits that we need to resolve to make sure that we can go forward legitimately. And if we can, the benefits are additional affordable housing, which we're required to do under the law. And if we don't do it here, we're going to have to do it someplace else, and it costs additional money for additional research and surveys and analysis. The other thing is the library. The library grant specifically written for this location, the specs, the analysis, the whole concept, the architectural renderings and drawings and floor plan dimensions and standards if the floors could hold the stacks. You have to look at the whole thing. You have to look and see what the original, what it will do in the long run. It's not a $100 million tax, as everybody was saying. It's not a give back of $100 million. It's an investment in our community. But I'd like to see if it's feasible, if the consultant comes back and says, this is what can be done, this is what is allowable. You know, we have to do everything we can, unless you don't want to spend the 30, end the project and give the developer the 7-figure tax rebate, then fine, then we lose even more. We lose the library, we lose affordable housing, particularly for seniors. Our seniors need affordable housing. People need affordable housing. We have to look at the whole thing. Look at the concept of a community within a community. The residential development in that area will support Essex Green, its stores, its restaurants, the whole thing. ShopRite will love it. You can walk right across the street. But that's what we have to look at. That's why I'd like to see what we can do. And the cost of doing it for the consultant is worth it. And at the end of the day, if it's not feasible, then it's not feasible. But I can't just see giving the developer their tax appeal 7 figures. You talk about losing tax revenue. There's a great way to lose tax revenue. So and that's why I like all the information to be on the table. When people make comments and people say, this is what it's going to be, I'd wish everybody would do their homework like all of the council does, like everybody does. Do your homework and find the right numbers. And I just don't want this to turn out to be like Main Street did, like Edison lost, how that was put off for so many years. And if it was done when it should have been done, it would have been a great catalyst, as it will be going forward. But that's all I have to say, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Matu Brown. Do you have any further comments or questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to just point out to Councilman Krokoviac's point with respect to, and I know that the council has discussed this in the past, with respect to having the experts who author reports come before the council. On page 17 of the appellate division's decision, it says that planning boards and governing bodies have an obligation to rigorously comply with the statutory criteria for determining whether an area is in need of redevelopment. So I say that to say that when we're at the planning board, with the exception of Councilwoman McCartney, because she sits on the planning board, we're not able to question, and I've tried, and I've been told that I cannot, the experts and their testimony, because I'm told that we are going to have this before us at town council to make a decision. And then at town council, we don't have the opportunity to ask questions of the expert who authored the report. So we're relying on a recommendation from the planning board when we are charged, as it's stated in this appellate division decision, as a governing body with an obligation to rigorously comply. So how do we rigorously comply without having that opportunity to question the report or the expert witness at any space? Again, I realize that Councilwoman McCartney sits on the planning board. She's able to ask questions. We are not when we are constituted as council. So I say that I echo Councilman Krokoviac's point with respect to having an expert come in before the council. To the point about wanting what's best in the interest for the township, which is what I believe Councilman Guarino was referring to in understanding how best to move forward. And what I said earlier was that the world has changed post-COVID. We see this mass exodus from apartment buildings in New York City to the suburbs of where we are. How do we know that moving forward without giving the owners of Executive Drive the opportunity to seek other alternatives, other options, or even discuss other options, that is what's in the best interest of West Orange? The Library Bond Act, that determination is going to be based on whether or not we have a tangible facility, and right now we do not. We don't even know if that's going to happen for the library because of the decision now. It took the appellate division 6 months to make a decision. By then, the Library Bond Act determination should have been had. There are so many what ifs right now that when I said, you know, this feels a little rushed, I don't think that, I don't know if that was enough time for there to be a real assessment by the owners themselves, the developers, as to, you know, what are the what ifs. It just feels really unstable to me to move forward so quickly. That's why I said I was not in a comfortable space. I think that because the township already paid well, it wasn't $30,000 to Mr. Greigel, but, you know, I think perhaps we should also amend our contracts that in situations like this, when this is not, you know, the fault of anyone on the governing body or the planning board, that those who authored those reports should be liable to make sure they make the record correct, and not the liability of the township. So that's all I have to say, Council President.
Thank you. Councilwoman McCartney?
Well, thank you. Don't have any questions about this resolution. What I wanted to do was respond to the comment that Councilman Krokoviac made about the comment I made about blight, because I do understand that the redevelopment law does associate blight when referring to an area in need of redevelopment. What I was referring to was during the planning process that there are 8 provisions that determine if an area can be designated and as an area in need of redevelopment. And what the planning board determined at that time was criteria B and D, and not that one about a blighted area. So I just wanted to clarify why I did not use the word blight, but I do understand it is referred to in the redevelopment law. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I respect all my colleagues' opinions, and not that I want to add to some of the comments that they made. So, as you know, I'm in real estate. I see trends moving forward. Right now, I see people fleeing New York, coming here to live. They're leaving New York City, having a lot of conversations with people why they're leaving. A lot of it, part is due to COVID. Part is also due to a lot of the deterioration in New York City with crime. And that has been an issue for folks that I've spoken to. Again, coming here to West Orange, and to Councilwoman Matute Brown's point, with, let them think about, what else they may do with the property is a very good and valid one. But I do see the need for these units because of the influx that we're getting from New York. I also see from my a lot of conversations with people that work in New York that they're not going back anytime soon. My daughter works in Roseland and not going back to that office anytime soon. So I do see these office buildings. Again, it's not our decision to make. This is why we're doing the study. So I'm curious to see what the planning board and the consultant comes back with. Let's not forget the project that's at Becker Farm Road. I found those office buildings to be in even better shape and have more vacancies than the one here in West Orange. And that projects have moved forward and not being contested. A few of my colleagues touched base. Yes, it is expensive to go to another consultant again. But yet and again, rightfully so, we made a decision to move forward with the training workshops. That's $45,000, which also benefits the community. So we have to do things that benefit the community, and sometimes due diligence is costly. With that being said, I do respect, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Trank, but I would like Ms. Gruhl to come before us after the planning board. I don't think we need an inquisition, so I would like her to come accept questions from the council. The public will have their opportunity at the planning board, so I don't want, I wouldn't open up to public comment, but I think the council, due to the circumstance of having to go back to revisit this, I'm going to side with my two colleagues in regards to having her come before us to answer questions just from the council. Again, the public could get their questions asked and answered at the planning board meeting. So if it's possible to add that language that she, part of her fee is to come before and answer questions of the council, I would appreciate that, if that's possible.
Yes, we can do that, Council President, because again, as you can see, I built in here not to exceed 3 planning board meetings. So again, last time it took 2 planning board meetings. So in my opinion, she's allocated time for a 3rd meeting. So okay. I'm going to ask her to amend it. If you approve it tonight, that it'll be a total of 3 meetings, including the township council. If for some reason the planning board ends up being more than 2 meetings, then we'll address that as to whether there has to be an additional fee or whatnot. But I'll deal with that amendment to make sure that she understands that her commitment is to come before you after the planning board acts.
Great, and I hope when the public and she does come before us, she's treated, in the past, at a prior hearing, I wasn't appreciative with the way she was treated as a professional, and I hope we all extend courtesy to her when she comes before us.
Well, the most important thing is what you said, Council President, is that the public's time to question her will be before the planning board.
Yes.
And that she will answer the council person's questions when she's before you for the ultimate consideration.
Okay, so with that being said, Madam Clerk, take a vote.
Yeah, is there a motion to adopt 179-20?
So moved.
Wait, Madam Clerk, aren't we amending it to have in the notice that the consultant will come before the council?
No.
Yeah, I'll as amended, I will.
Yeah, as amended.
Yes.
That's why I'm asking. I mean.
Yeah,
yes,
thank
you're
you,
correct.
Councilman.
You're correct.
Okay, so I have a first and second. Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
No.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
No. No.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Castellino?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
On second and final reading, 2615-20, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 2, Section 59 of the General Ordinances of the Township of West Orange, entitled Board of the Oscar Schindler Performing Arts Center. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Pick.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Castellino?
Yes. Okay, so at this time, if there's any member of the public that would just like to comment on this ordinance only, please raise your hand for the moderator. Madam Moderator, do we have anyone that'd like to speak in regard to this ordinance only?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from my colleagues? Go ahead, Councilman Kukoviac. I see your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Just very briefly, this is sort of a tangential issue, but I was wondering if Councilwoman Matute Brown might be able to tell us how many meetings the board has had already, and if she could distribute the meeting minutes to the council so we can get a better idea of what's going on. That's all.
Councilwoman?
Sure. As soon as the ordinance is passed, then the board would be complete and they will have their meetings. I mean, obviously with COVID, a lot has been put on halt. So they have not had a meeting, but after this resolution, if passed on second reading, I will forward to the members of the board so that they can schedule meetings as they're able to. But they have not had a meeting. As a board, they have not met.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk. Oh, anyone else have any comments?
Yes, Council President, I had my hand up because I
Oh,
just,
sorry, couldn't see you.
because it sounds like maybe I wasn't clear. I was wondering how many meetings there have been since the board was created, not since it's expanded, because it obviously can't expand until we approve it. But I wanted to know how many times the board has met and also request the minutes from those meetings be sent to the council.
They have not met. They have attempted to meet. As far as I know, they discussed a couple of dates, but nothing came to fruition. So they have not met. There are no minutes to any meetings.
Any other questions, Councilman?
No, I just had expected that there would be regular. I'll bring it up at another time, maybe at the next council meeting at matters pending.
Sure.
Okay, anyone else have any questions on this ordinance? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Is there a motion to approve 2615-20?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Yes.
Council President Castellino.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 2616-20, Mr. Trank.
Council, I don't know if Mr. Trank is still on or not, but
Okay.
Council President, because this is a Chapter 25 ordinance,
Okay.
it really needs to be reviewed by the planning board before you can act on it. And it was brought to my attention earlier today by Councilwoman McCartney that the planning board had not yet reviewed it. Am I correct in that?
Yes, yes.
So
It
I
has
think
not
you
been
need to
reviewed.
postpone this for the next meeting. I think the planning board does meet on October,
7th, October 7th?
really, I thought it was before that.
No.
No, first Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
Okay. So what's procedurally, do we just table it and take a vote?
Yeah, you just need to carry it until after the planning board, after you get the planning board report.
Okay.
October 20th.
Okay.
So Madam
So
Clerk.
I need a
do
motion to
what is the
table it
process
then?
here?
I'm sorry, there's two people talking.
I'm sorry, Council President, I was asking the clerk the process on getting it before the planning board.
I'm going to send it to Janice tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And you're postponing it until after the planning board acts, the next meeting after the planning board acts.
Right, October 20th.
But my question was, do I have to make a motion to table it or
It's a
not?
motion to postpone until the meeting
Yeah.
following
Okay.
it's to a specific time. It's not, there's no such thing as a motion to table. We've gone through this before. Everybody uses it, but there's really no such motion.
Okay.
It's a motion to postpone to a specific time.
Okay, so motion to postpone to
October 20th.
October 20th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, Councilman Guarino,
yes.
Councilman Kukoviac,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Yes.
Council President Castellino.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, 2617, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 25 Land Use Regulations of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of West Orange to implement recommendations of the Master Plan reexamination. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So moved.
Second,
Councilman Guarino,
yes.
Councilman Kukoviac,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Yes.
Council President Castellino.
Yes. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak on this ordinance only? Please raise your hand for the moderator.
And no one has raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from my colleagues?
Council President, I wanted to respond, I do want to respond. At our last meeting, Councilwoman Matute Brown had asked about zoning for medical marijuana sites. I spoke to the planner about that because that was a discussion, and he felt that it is not in this ordinance recommendation. It should be another conversation and discussion that the council has. There are a lot of considerations for that.
So, Councilwoman McCartney, but it was included in the recommendation for the amendments of the master plan. I recall reading it. Was there a change of it? Did he
I
change?
think it was just for a discussion because, not in this.
It was in the amendments for the master plan. So well, I guess we can talk about that under new business. Thank you, Councilwoman McCartney.
You're welcome.
Okay, Madam, anyone else have any comments on this ordinance? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Is there a motion to approve 2617-20 on second and final reading?
So moved,
Second.
Councilman Guarino,
yes.
Councilman Kukoviac,
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney,
Yes.
Council President Castellino.
Yes.
Ordinance 2618-20, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7, Traffic subsection 7-32.2, restricted parking of the revised general ordinances of the Township of West Orange, 179 High Street. Is there a motion to introduce on second and final reading?
So move.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Castellino?
Yes. Okay, do we have any members of the public wishing to speak on this ordinance in regards to restricted parking on High Street?
No one raised their hand.
Okay. Anyone?
No, no one raised their hand.
Okay, thank you. My colleagues have any comments or questions? Okay, great. Madam Clerk?
Is there a motion to approve 2618-20?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Councilman Guarino?
Yes.
Councilman Kukoviac?
Yes.
Councilwoman Matute Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Council President Castellino?
Yes.
There are no ordinances on first reading. Pending matters, new matters, council discussion.
Okay, so I wanted to have a quick discussion. There are other towns that are moving back into their chambers or going to their high schools. I spoke with Dr. Cascone in regards to utilizing West Orange High School, the auditorium, if we wanted to move back into a public setting. Just wanted to throw it out there. That we are asking our students the next month or so to go back in our buildings. And I just wanted to see where everybody was at. Some of the comments I've been getting from residents, although they appreciate the Zoom meetings, they could hear us better, see us better when we're on television.
Council President?
Go ahead, Councilman Guarino.
I would like to get back into a public venue because it's just so much better to be with my colleagues. It makes it easier with discussion. And, you get to see the public too, because with the auditorium at the high school, it's sufficient enough to be social distance. You can fit enough people there. We don't get more than 25 or 50 people, if that, depending upon the issue. So I think it would be a great opportunity to get back to some part of normalcy. I mean, I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I think it would be great.
Council President, I would have to say that I have several concerns returning into a public building, considering the increasing number of cases that we're seeing. Schools are closing. Those who started in hybrid positions are now closed. New Jersey Institute of Technology just quarantined their campus. And I'm also concerned that there will be residents who are reluctant for many reasons, particularly medical concerns for themselves and for family members that will not be joining us at these public meetings. I think that we should continue to, proceed with caution. Right now, the flu season's coming and our numbers are rising at the state again. I would not be comfortable.
Council President, I got to agree then too with Councilwoman Matute Brown, because, I do have underlying, condition, that would be, I was just thinking on the whole, but, I have to actually really agree with the Councilwoman.
Okay, well, that's why we're having a discussion. Councilman Kukoviac?
I'm fine with doing this. It seems the comments that I've heard are also that it's easier for everybody and safer.
Okay, Councilwoman McCartney?
Council President, so as you know, my school is open. We have a reduced number of children there, and we have every CDC guideline protocol in place. I don't see that would happen with us going into the high school or an auditorium with the public. So I think that I feel safer where we are presently.
Okay. Well,
Just-
and just so you know, the way it would be set up is we would be socially distant, where the high school is big enough on the floor, and the public, we'd have caution tape, and they would only be able to go halfway down, and they could be seated in the back of the auditorium. But again, I
No,
just want to throw it out there
Thank
because
you.
I have residents approaching me with it, and other town councils are back in their chambers. So I just wanted to have the discussion.
It's a little bit more than just social distancing. There's still contact and, there are a series of 10 questions that we have to ask our parents just upon arrival, not just taking temperatures, about if they've had any contact, and it's just a whole series of questions.
No, I know, I understand,
We're not putting
Councilwoman.
those guidelines in place.
And we would have to implement all that if we to do
Right.
so. It's not like just somebody could walk in and show up. But again, I said I would have the conversation,
I
and
would
that's
like
what
to
we
see
did.
it, but I'm not ready.
Yeah, I'm not hearing the support for it. So, okay. Do my colleagues have any items?
Yes, Councilwoman.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Just to circle back on the discussion of the medicinal marijuana dispensaries, I know that that was something that it was an ordinance that was taken off our agenda when it came up. I'm going to guess that probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago. I would ask that Council President consider putting that back on the agenda for discussion, particularly since November 3rd, the ballot question is, with respect to the legalization of marijuana. I think as a council and governing body, we should be prepared to make those changes. And we're not going to be able to do that without a discussion. So I think that the conversation needs to, happen again.
Okay, so Councilwoman, I think because it is going to be on the ballot, I can't see why we just can't wait to see where we go instead of, we have so many other things on our agenda that I don't see why not just wait a month.
Why not have the discussion? It's a discussion. It's been months since it was on the agenda.
Yeah, and there wasn't support. That's why it's not on the agenda.
Because you wanted to further discuss it, but we have not discussed it. So I'm asking that you consider placing it back on the agenda for further discussion.
Council
Okay.
President,
I'll make a
if I can speak briefly to this.
Sure.
My recollection is that Mr. Moon from Mr. Shank's office was developing some expertise in this area. He had prepared an ordinance, if I remember correctly. It had been on the agenda, it was off the agenda. There had been some discussion about it. I know he was going to be following up. So I think he would need to be present at the meeting when this is discussed, because he is the one who has some expertise in the area. So whenever the council wants to do it, I'm sure we'll make the arrangements.
Okay.
And I
So
will
then
follow up,
we'll
Council
go
President,
ahead,
I'll follow up
Councilman.
with- Yes, thank you. I will follow up with the planner also, that the planning board does meet on October 7th to have the discussion on at a planning level also.
Okay, thank you. Also, Council President, the other item I wanted to bring up was, I know you briefly mentioned Rock Spring, and the mayor was he's preparing a discussion. I was just concerned that the report that we received is now months old, and wanted to be sure that that's also on the agenda for discussion.
Sorry, which report, Councilwoman?
The one that we received from the golf architect.
Oh, yeah, well, the architecture, so that was about the course. So that, okay.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
I want us to be able, I know that a lot of things has transpired, but I just didn't want to, lose sight of it. At one time, I think the mayor responded that it would be on the agenda, but it's been a couple of months. So I just wanted to circle back to that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's part of what his discussion.
Okay. Do you know when we're going to have that discussion?
Anytime soon. I know he was doing his due diligence, so I'm gonna check back with him. So I would say within a couple weeks.
All right, I'll follow up with the
Yeah,
resident.
I'll let you know. He's
Yeah.
gonna get back to me.
I
He's
want to
got
be
it.
able to respond also to the residents with they provided a very detailed email, and I love that they've all gotten together
Yes,
to be vigilant on next steps, and I just want to be responsive.
absolutely. We all do.
Thank you. That was it for me for new business.
Okay, great. All right, any other items before we move to our ABC hearing? Okay, with that, I'd like to motion.
Councilman
So, I
Krokoviac
think
has
we
his
can-
hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councilman, you're not on my screen. I can't see you.
I need to realize that, so I'm sorry. This is my fault. Just a very quick question. If Mr. Sayers is still on the call, I think the council got a complaint about a parking situation, a commercial truck parking situation on the west side of town. And I just wanted to know what the status of that was, if Mr. Sayers is still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. You're talking about the commercial vehicles over on,
I wasn't going to mention a street name, but yes, that's the one.
I spoke to Miss Gary Adams today, and she said that they took care of that about a week and a half ago.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. Okay, I need a motion for us to leave the public meeting to go into our ABC hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All
Okay.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried.
Okay. All right, so that ends our public session for the evening. Our next virtual council meeting will be October 6th at 6:30 p.m. And again, the instructions will be posted the Friday prior to the meeting. We thank you all for tuning in this evening. Thank you for staying through our executive session. And stay safe and stay well, West Orange. Good night.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The motion is carried.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. This is to inform everyone that when I end the meeting, it will end for those both on and off screen, and no other business will be conducted. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you, Lauren. Good night.